Live from beautiful downtown Bastrop, it's time for the Stage Select, starring Julian Titus and Justin Ham.
What could this possibly be? Seems a lot like a podcast, wonder what specifically. Talking about video games. With your hosts, you're in good hands, not more of the same. Now we'll jump right in. So expect the unexpected and more. Now we'll get grooving. Never know who's gonna walk through the door. There just might be some treasure in this chest. Having fun with our special guest. Time for Stage Select.
With special guest, friend of the show, John Gholson. And here are your hosts, Julian Titus and Justin Ham.
Now we're cooking with gas. Now we're playing with power.
Now we're cooking
Now
with
we're-
gas. You know what that reminds me of, Julian? Did you have the same videotape? The G.I. Joe, those old FYE G.I. Joe videotapes that came in the big cardboard box? And like they had like
No.
G.I. Joe and Transformers, and there was like one episode per. We had like 20 minutes, like one episode per videotape. And there's like in the G.I. Joe episode, Duke and Scarlet are flying away, and he goes, "Now we're cooking with gas." So I thought anyways. Sorry.
Huh. Oh, no, that's just a thing. I mean, you know, it's an old-timey saying that I like to bring out here and there. All righty. Welcome, one and all, to the Stage Select. I'm Julian Titus.
And I'm Justin Ham. I'm so thrown off by the previous conversation now but here we are of old time sayings and G.I. Joe. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Yeah. Julian, how you doing?
Man, we'll get into it later.
Okay.
It's going to be like this. I'm just letting y'all know right now. But don't leave. We're not talking about Persona 3 and Skyrim modding this week.
No.
So please stay. We got other shit to talk about this episode because we have a very special guest. You already heard him because you hear him every week on the Stage Select. But he is my friend and also friend of the show, John Gholson.
Thank you for having me.
It's like 5 notches above what you actually did for the show, but it's fine.
good though. Yeah. It's good.
This is my normal speaking voice. No, hi everybody. Do I announce myself? I don't remember. Is there, because you had me do some drops?
No, yeah.
Is there a John Gholson?
Yes,
Okay.
there is.
Oh, good. Good.
So yeah, they will have already heard it because I'll cut together like I have like actual intros for like, you know, all of our like regulars
That makes sense.
that have been on so far. And actually I need you to like come by to like record some new ones for new friends that we've made and also pie in the sky guests that I'm hoping to get later.
Barack Obama. Like that.
You
Yeah.
nailed it. That's
Yeah.
it. That's the one.
Notable Game Grumps fan Barack Obama.
Yeah.
He's going to someone out there got that. Before we jump into things, though, I did have a little bit of housekeeping. The first one, I was on the Soundtracker podcast for the second time after like 3 years.
Cool.
So that was really cool. I was not aware that for this new season of Soundtracker, Eric Peacock is actually doing it as Patreon only. He's trying like kind of a new business model type thing. You know, and I get it. Like, you know, the show had kind of run away from him. Like, you know, just like it's a lot of work, right? He does a lot of research for those shows and they're very well thought out and they're very informative. But he's also like a full-time teacher and he's been like really snowed under with his teaching job. So I totally get it. What he does is he puts out like a 15-minute preview in the free feed, and then if you want to listen to the whole thing, you can go to Patreon. I do highly recommend supporting him on Patreon because, like I said, his show is excellent.
Yeah.
Talked to him about Varsity Blues, which was a ton of fun. It was great to go through that soundtrack a few times over the last like week or so, and you know, watch that movie for like the 20th time. Yes, John.
I don't want to spoil the podcast, but what is it the soundtrack or the score? Is it like original songs for and inspired by Friday Night Lights, or is it like score?
No. Eric focuses on like actual like songs with lyrics on the soundtrack.
Varsity Blues or Friday Night Lights?
Varsity Blues.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Other football movie.
Yeah. They're the same thing.
Okay.
You shut your goddamn mouth. If there's like a notable piece of score, then we'll talk about it. So like when I was on for Transformers the animated movie, like I definitely talked about like some of my favorite bits of the score that are in the soundtrack, because they're really cool pieces of music to me. But he tends to focus on either original music that was made for the podcast itself or for the show itself or the movie itself. Sorry, my brain's
okay.
fried.
It's all right. Or
just licensed music that is part of the soundtrack. So the Varsity Blues soundtrack has both. There's original music in there.
And it's not all country jock jams. It's not all country music, like stuff you listen to while you're tailgating.
No, it's like Green Day, Third Eye Blind, Justin's favorite, Collective Soul.
Oh, yeah.
I know Justin loves Collective Soul.
Let your light shine down.
Yeah, probably. Why not?
Whoa.
The other two other things. One, real quick. We still have the poll up on our Patreon page for the next episode of the Suffer Select. The choices are between Waifu Impact 2 and the original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles for the Nintendo Entertainment System. You will have until 7:30 Central Time on March 7th. That's when we'll close the poll and announce the winner. And then we'll release the episode.
Game comes out.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. Remember it like that.
We'll transfer nice. We'll transition nicely from Skyrim modding to WWE Create Talk for a few episodes. And then just a special thanks to Dennis Robertson, who gave us a nice $50 tip on coffee.
Oh, wow.
Reminder that is a way to support the show if you don't want to join Patreon. So thank you. I thank you profusely, Dennis. But also, I wanted to say this out loud, not just for Dennis, but also for anybody who thinks about doing that. I don't know if you realize that you clicked a subscription and not like a one-time thing, Dennis.
Oh.
So you might want to go into your options and change that unless you're wanting to support us for $50 a month. Like by all means,
go nuts. But you know.
but that's probably not the case. So just make sure that you don't get billed again for next month, because I would hate for that to happen. Yeah, but that's it for like housekeeping stuff. John Gholson,
yes,
is a person that I have known for a very long time. I believe we met around 1999.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah. Whatever.
We've been friends.
We can find out the exact date. Well, I'd say exact date. We can find out the exact period of time because it would have been when that Lunar release happened. I'm looking up the
Silver Star Story or Lunar 2?
Silver Star Story.
Okay. Yes, because John Gholson was the manager at KB Toys at the mall that I worked at.
Ah, okay.
And so he used to come to our store to shop for video games. And then eventually he started working for our store.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually managing 2 stores of ours in San Antonio. And we've been friends ever since. He's one of my closest, oldest friends. For new listeners, you hear him, like I said, he's the announcer on the show. He's also the one that provided our logo and artwork. But yeah, there's few people who know me as well as John Gholson does. And I would posit that there's few people that know John Gholson as well as Julian Titus does.
I would say the same thing. There's like a whole bunch of people that like. There's very few from the window of time where I was married that actually knew me when I was married and have met my ex-wife. So it's like there's like a very.
I mean, before you were married,
yeah, but even before I was married, that's true.
Yeah.
In '99, I would have been 24. I turn 50 this year, so that's something to make you feel old. Yeah.
Nah. I have wanted to have John on this show for like basically since it started, but John is one of the most talented, busiest people that I know. He is an artist. He is an actual actor now, like officially. He is a very talented comedian. He is one of the most knowledgeable people of film you will ever encounter, and just a general all around cool guy that I really love talking to about whatever. Doesn't really matter what we're talking about. It's always a good time.
But let's get into what I'm bad at.
Okay.
enough
I'm
of this.
intrigued now.
Enough of this stuff about what. Name some things I'm terrible at, Julian. Just so I can keep my ego in check. Give me at least 3 things. Top 3 things I suck at. Running.
Ooh.
I'll say running. I have bad knees. Running is like an obvious one. So running is a freebie spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 2 things then.
Yeah, we'll give you 2. 2 things I suck at.
Video games?
I suck at video games?
Ooh.
I think you complain about difficulty in games to me more than anybody else that I know.
I don't have the patience I had as a child where you could rent Total Recall for the weekend and that would be the game that you had for Nintendo and that was what you played.
Oh, God.
Or you borrowed Back to the Future 2 and 3, that LJN cart that had both games on it, and you borrowed that from somebody in your neighborhood, so that was the game that you had to play for a couple months and you actually beat it because just through sheer force of will. I have said this in a recording session with the 3 of us before on the previous show. I have beat Silver Surfer for the NES.
Yeah,
that is my hardcore claim to fame, but it's because I could grind. When I was a kid, I could grind and just like memorize patterns and play it over and over and over, and that's what I would do all day long. And now, a lot of what I play is like, especially when I'm playing like adventure games or RPGs, it's like, I want to see what's next. I don't want to do the same battle more than 3 times, and I'm like, nah. Beating me once is like, okay, that's fine. Beating me twice is like, all right, let's see. And third time is like, do I take this off my system?
But you said something that actually brings a lot of things into sharp focus for me. You named 3 terrible LJN NES games one after another. So I think what happened is, much like a cat using up like 8 of their lives like in quick succession, you burned all of your patience as a lad, and so now like you're done.
I have to circle back. Did you actually beat the Total Recall game?
No. I didn't.
Okay, all right.
I just have memories. I have memories of like that being one of the last NES games that I rented, and and playing it like all weekend long, and it not being a great game. It was just what came to mind.
We bought that at a pawn shop in Virginia for something to play on the Nintendo at my grandmother's house, and man, that was terrible. So. Yeah, I was just curious. I could never really. I was like, I couldn't imagine sitting there trying to beat that game, because I was like, thank God there's like at least Ninja Gaiden in this mix of things we bought.
That's why I ended up playing a lot of I've played a lot of stinkers, because like we didn't have a ton of money, and so if a video store was like closing out games that never rented, then I might get a game from that. It's how I had like one of the first games I got for my Nintendo after the purchase of the Nintendo was, is it called Amagon? Like a little guy. It's a platformer, and there's a little guy that becomes a big muscle guy with no shirt on, and all he does is uppercuts.
Yeah.
That was a bad game.
Yeah, that was like one of the first games that I had on my Nintendo. A lot of my Nintendo collection was like games of questionable quality, because we were poor. We were just poor. So you get the clearance games, and you get the used games. You're not getting, the brand new stuff. I think Super Mario Brothers 3, like I had a babysitting job and saved up weeks for my babysitting job to get Super Mario Brothers 3 back in the day.
Okay.
But short of that, that's like one of the few new ones I had.
When Farmore closed here in Austin, and they were clearing out their video section, we got a bunch of NES games there because it was like not long after I got my Nintendo, and I remember they were like $7 a pop. I remember that very distinctly. They were selling them for $7, and I can almost name them all off the top of my head. But I lucked out with them being like really good games because I remember it was Journey to Silius, it was Shadowgate, shit. I thought I had more off the top of my head. That's all I'm remembering right now, though. But I mean, those were two like really good games, even though I didn't get very far in Shadowgate at all. Shit, I thought I had them. God damn it.
Well, I will take that I'm bad at video games. I think that I would modify that I'm impatient with games. That's why I always tell you I hate stealth.
No, I hear you.
Stealth games in particular are like, I don't want to have to learn patterns of movement to figure out how to walk through the hallways of a top secret base. Like, I don't want to have to do that. And like stealth games in particular, like it requires patience, like just by its sheer nature requires you to slow down, take it slow, figure it out. And it's like that. There are a few that I've enjoyed, but like I'll take it, but I will say it has more to do with my levels of patience than it does skill. Because I beat Top Gun.
Okay. Yeah, like I said, the fact that you burned through like so much of that with those LJN games, like mad props.
Well, you still got to tell me one more thing. One more thing I'm bad at.
I would say you were the unluckiest person that I know. Like, that's not really a skill, but of the friends that I have, and like the long-term friends that I have had, like the worst stuff has happened to you. I'll be like, God damn it. Like, when is John Gholson going to get a break? I have thought that to myself many times, but I think this is the year. I feel strongly that this is the year.
I feel like this might be the year. No, I had about a bad luck. Like, it lasted a few years, probably. It's been a little while since I felt that way. Well, I say that. It's always with me. It's always when it rains, it pours. It's like always like a bunch of stuff all in one week, but it's always also like kind of, it swings the other way too, where there's like this feast and famine thing. So it's like either a bunch of terrible stuff is going on at the same time, or nothing's happening, or a bunch of good stuff is going on at the same time. But it's like, there's never any like, it doesn't, I would hope that you would say that I am not an overly negative person. Maybe I am and I don't know it, but I don't think
no absolutely no.
I don't think of myself as like cynical or I think I'm fairly optimistic, and it's not that I don't have worries and stresses or get negative, but I think it just, my general outlook is relatively positive, I think.
If I had gone through the stuff that you had gone through, I don't know. I don't want to say that I wouldn't be here anymore, but like I would, like, you and I are very different in that respect. Like you have always, like, through even the worst of it, have always had like the sunniest of dispositions. Like it's what, there's a lot of things about you that I'm jealous of, and that's your overall demeanor is definitely one of them. If I was like, if I could be, if I strive to be more Gholson-like, like people like I grew up like being told to be more Christ-like. No, I want to be more Gholson-like.
There you go.
A bunch of crap will happen, and then there'll be a long break, and then a bunch of good will happen. And the thing that keeps me sane is, even when a bunch of bad is happening, there's an awareness that like hold out, because a bunch of good will happen again. Like it's been this way for a little while. Yeah, this year, the adventure that I am on now started in spring of last year. And I can't remember if I've been on the show. I think I have been on the show, not Stage Select, but I think the previous show, I think I was on maybe during the summer when the stuff had already happened, when I had done the two movies that are not out yet, that both of them come out in 2025. And I know the plans for both of them. Like, they're secret plans, but I know the plans for both of them. And like, that stuff's coming. It's like I've got this Netflix show that I'm on that I had not done when I was last here. I've got the role in that Netflix show that's coming. But like, Julian just saw me, and like I have literally no income right now. Like it's all stuff that's like far out, like it's way out there, and it sounds glamorous, but there's this whole other struggle involved where it's just like, yeah, I don't know. Like I've got a little bit of money from cashing out my 401k, and I'm literally living off that while every month is rent and insurance and bills, and the 401k gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller, while I hope that I get another acting job someday. Maybe.
Well, yeah, I mean, let because you know the big thing. I mean, yeah, because you know you had not been on the Stage Select in its first season. The last time the three of us spoke on a podcast was on Nerds Without Pants before it ended. But you know, in the last like 4 months, 5 months, you are making you made the plunge to like do acting. You know, I know it wasn't like it was kind of this like thing that kind of fell in your lap just with like the scenarios that happened, but like you're making a go of it, where before you were just kind of auditioning for things as you could, being in things as you could.
Yeah, not barely even that. So I know you want to talk about your current new job. So I'll talk about my. We'll just do today's theme is jobs. I'll talk about my current new job. So I did 2 horror movies last year back to back. I've never done 2 movies back to back. Some friends were making a horror movie, and they had a small part for me. They were like, do you know anybody who could play this bigger part? I said no. They said, would you read for it? I said yes. I ended up nailing the audition, got the part. I'm in that movie. That movie wraps. I get like a week later, or the week in between, I get an email that's like, hey, I have this is some different director. Like, I have a part for you in this thing. Do you want to come and be in it? And I was like, yeah. So I shot these 2 movies back to back and didn't audition for either one of them. Like as far as auditions go, like the only thing I've auditioned for was Zero Charisma, which is like 10 years ago or 11 years ago at this point. That's the only one I've auditioned for. Everything else, even like working for NBC, was like somebody saw Zero Charisma and was like, hey, we're getting all the Zero Charisma people to come back and be in this episode of this new TV show. So everything has been with no audition. So I was telling myself like I need to get on the stick. So doing the 2 features back to back, I was like, this summer, I'm going to cut my reel. I'm going to get new headshots. I'm going to get an agent. Like it's been far too long. I've put this off for far too long. The opportunities are out there. They're coming to me anyways, even though I'm not like actively like going out on the hunt. I'm still finding these things, and I really like doing it. So yeah, I got my reel cut. I got my headshots. I reached out to an agency. I wasn't sure how long agencies take to get back. So it was like a month and a week or so. And I was like getting a little antsy about it. And I was like, I'm going to start looking around at other agencies. So I emailed the agency that I had sent the inquiry out to and was like, hey, I sent something a little over a month ago. I'm not sure how long it takes you guys to look at stuff, but I'm going to start shopping around. And I got a call that day that was like, can you meet today? If not, we'll meet in 2 weeks. And I was like, yes, let's meet today. So I met and I signed with them on that Tuesday. Then on Wednesday, my day job was user experience, like UX for apps and web design, not doing coding, not doing development, and not doing final art, but basically doing screen-to-screen layouts. Hey, this is how this functions. This button goes to here. This is how users open this drawer to get to this spot, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And was doing UX. I've been doing that for about 13 years. And I had done the thing where your company is bought and bought and bought by bigger and bigger fish. Like we were a little company bought by a bigger company, bought by a bigger company, bought by a bigger company. So in the past year, we were bought by a big company. Wednesday, there's a meeting. So this is the day after I signed with the agency. There's a meeting on the calendar and it says chat with Josh. And they always say one-on-one. And I was like, huh. So I messaged a coworker who I got along with really well and was like, hey, does Josh call his meetings chats or one-on-ones? And she was like, oh, he calls them one-on-ones. I was like, huh, I thought so too. I wonder why it says chat with Josh. And she was like, yeah, I wonder what that's about. I said, I'm getting fired. No, you're not getting fired. No, you're too important to get fired. I was like, no, I'm getting fired. And like, I showed up in the meeting and it was Josh and some other guy I'd never seen before. And the minute I saw that there was another person on the call, I was just like, oh, okay, well, here we go. And so, yeah, and then my birthday was that weekend. And then the week before that was me getting accepted into Playhouse ATX. I've been taking, like, acting classes where they had, like, they interviewed, like, a big group of people and, like, try to whittle it down.
Okay.
But that all happened in a week. So it was like I signed up to take acting classes. I signed with an agency. I lost my job of 13 years. And then my birthday was that Saturday. But it was like, and then Justin, within a week. So I signed with that agency within a week. I had I landed a national ad and a role on a Netflix show. And I was just like, this is it, man. Like hitting the ground running. Like, this is my future. Like, I can do this. We can I can put a roof over my head. And that was the last time I got anything. It's like, I've done background now in 3 ads where it's just like the other day I was background in an insurance commercial, but it's a row of cars like going into a drive-through and I'm in the 3rd row back. Right. So like, I'm just sitting in my car. Like, it's not, you can probably barely see my car in the shot, much less me. And that's fine. That's fine. It pays. If I could get a couple of those every week, I would be secure, honestly. Like, if I could get a couple background every week, but it hasn't been that way. I got the 2 jobs right out of the gate the first week of October. And then I've gotten 3 since October, 3 background gigs since October. It's freaking hard. It's hard.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm trying to stay the course because, like, some of the stuff that, like, you know, the 2 films that I talked about doing last year are still locked and loaded. I'll probably ask to come back on to help promote those in some way once people can actually see them or once I have some news to share about them.
Of course.
But it's like, I'm trying to if I cannot return to the grind, if I can not do this is a grind, but it's a different kind of grind. If I can not do the 9 to 5, if I can like avoid that until this other stuff is out and let me see how it might change anything, if it changes anything at all.
Right.
I'm just trying to stay the course. Meanwhile, I picked up really weird. I don't know how much I can talk about this, but I have found satisfaction doing gig-based acting for medical schools.
Okay.
Yeah, they run simulations. So, and it makes sense that they would, you know, because they're not going to do it to real patients. But yeah, it's interesting, and it's not, you know, it's not a full-time thing, but it scratches kind of the acting itch in a weird way. It feels more like acting than being background in like a Chili's commercial does. It's like the one is like you're a body filling a space, and the other one is like, oh, you are actually pretending, like you're having to act. And I get the same kind of like inner satisfaction. But that's my new job is picking up those gigs when I can and picking up background when I can and still auditioning for stuff like every single week. And it is very foolhardy. The struggle that I have is this thing where when you are operating this way, you have to believe in yourself. You have to believe that you have something to offer. You have to have a certain amount of like ego and drive and commitment to someone needing you specifically, while also feeling like a complete idiot because you're not making any money. You're throwing auditions down a hole. Like nobody's hiring you. And it's like, wait, am I delusional? Or do I keep believing in myself? Because like they are running in tandem side by side, and they have been now for a couple months. This thing of like, no, stay the course. I can do this. And there's this other person running alongside going like, what are you doing? Like you will never financially recover from this. but we'll see.
Okay. That's actually the third thing that you're bad at is when it comes to your acting, you do not like, I don't think you see what others see, because I can attest that John Gholson is a hell of an actor.
I believe it.
In everything that I've seen him act in. And that this goes back years to when he was at SCAD, the Savannah College of Art and Design. He did like some, like small film projects and stuff like that. There was a short film that they did called Live Zombies, where he plays like this just despicable guy that sells zombies. Like he has zombies like just like corralled, and he'll sell them to you. And I was sitting next to John on the couch, like watching this thing, and I was like, I don't want to fucking sit next to this guy right now. Like he is creeping me out. Like it was like this like sense of like revulsion, that I was feeling next to one of my best friends because his portrayal on the screen was just so disgusting.
Well, that's a nice compliment. I mean that looked. Yeah. I was convincingly gross. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
It's more of your acting stuff kind of like dovetails into what I got up to this week. But before that, game wise, like what have you been up to? I mean, obviously you've got probably more free time than you did before because like the auditions are not like every day from like this time period to this time period, right? So like,
so you're
playing
stuff.
Are
you calling me out for beating Avowed in a couple days? Is that what this
Wow. I'm calling you out for paying extra money to play it early. Like when you have Game Pass.
$22 or whatever. And I needed something to.
No, you had to pay the whole thing.
No.
You had to pay, like.
No, you pay the season pass. All you buy is the season pass.
Oh, yeah, really?
It was
Oh, yeah. If you have Game Pass, I imagine that is how that would work. Yeah.
It was.
Oh, I thought you had to. I thought. Oh, that's it. I didn't realize that. I thought the people who had Game Pass, who were playing the games early, were paying full, like not only full price but the deluxe
$22.49. If you paid $22.49 or whatever it was for the, if you paid for the season pass, then you could go ahead and play the game early. And I was like, well, I know from playing Outer Worlds that the expansions really made that game feel very full. And I was like, I know I will want to play the expansions, and so. I needed a break from my nonstop casual gaming because right now I still am bouncing back and forth between Balatro and Star Trek Legends.
Oh yeah,
and just like ping ponging. I'm either playing Balatro or Star Trek Legends, like one of the two. And I wanted something to break the monotony of these like more casual games. So then I blazed through Avowed, and I finished it on the day it was released.
Oh wow! Yeah,
yeah. That's like game reviewer, like turnaround.
Yeah. That's what I felt embarrassed because somebody on the Discord asked how many hours I put in, and I looked at it and I was like, "There's no way," because it was 5 days exactly, but the hours were like insane, and I was like, "I didn't do that. I did not do that," because I had people like I had a life as well. Like I went to class and I had people over, and I was like, "There's no way I did that." And he had pointed out to me that, and I can't remember, my Discord's closed right now. Otherwise, I would credit you, dear listener. But they were saying that like certain games, if you turn the console off and it's in quick start, then the game is still clocking.
It will still count.
I was like,
yes.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, every once in a while.
You would like to think that a first-party Microsoft game would not do that, but, here we are.
Especially an RPG where people actually do care about the measure of time it takes to complete the game.
Yeah, it's kind of weird.
So that's what I'm playing, and I fired up one of the... I never did complete... I bought the Vampire the Masquerade visual novels. I bought the Bloodsong game as well, but I bought the visual novels and I never did complete them. So right now I'm also trying to complete the Vampire the Masquerade Coteries of New York, I think is the first one.
Okay. Yeah. How many of those are there?
There are 3 of those. And they're pretty good because they actually give you more. I feel like I've played visual novels where it's like it is literally a visual novel, where you're pushing A just to read the next bit of dialogue, and that's about it. But these have a little bit more gamification. Like there are dialogue choices. There is stuff that branches. There are powers that you can use, and if you use the power, then you have to take the time out to feed. Like there's ways to screw it up.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, it's way more gamified than these typically are, but it is still more or less like a glorified choose your own adventure novel. Like it's
Right.
You know, there's no, you're everything is, you're reading. Like the whole thing is reading, you know. It's, I kind of dig them. That's actually why I ended up picking up Bloodsong. That and the fact that Focus has a tendency to publish games that I find, they're like the developer for me in games that are janky but interesting. And every Focus published game I've played, Greedfall or Vampire, or there was some other one. There was some other one that took place in a mansion that was like a murder mystery.
Vampire was Don't Nod.
Was it Don't
though,
Nod?
like,
No, I
developed
thought
it.
Don't Nod. Oh, I'm not talking about developer. I thought Focus published Bloodsong, which was the 3D actual RPG one.
Oh, let me look.
Oh, if you're talking about publisher, sorry, I thought you were talking about developer.
No. I'm talking about Focus as a publisher, because Focus does a lot. Focus did Greedfall. Focus did that weird murder mystery one where you're in a mansion and you play like a French detective, but it has like horror elements that I can't remember the name of. It was split into a bunch of individual chapters. Boy. Anyways, point is, I like them. That's the point. and I think Focus is a company that none of their games are quite, they're just not quite there for whatever reason, but everything they do is kind of interesting in some way or another.
Right.
I don't know.
Oh, it was that game called The Council?
Yeah, maybe it was like split up into chapters.
Yeah.
Yes,
it was almost kind of like a Telltale game or whatever.
Yeah,
and like yeah. Okay, I remember that. It's been a while, but I do remember that. Yeah.
I keep seeing like just so many takes of games aren't fun anymore, and like nothing original comes out anymore, and this and that, and it's like I just think you don't like things anymore, or you're not paying attention because there's so much. And honestly, like this week alone, like literally just yesterday, I found like 3 game trailers for like things that like brand new IP. Well, one of them was actually like it's a Terminator game, but it's like a new, it's like from a new developer. It's a 2D Contra style game with like some search. I think there's also a bit of search action in there. It looks incredible. It's like incredible sprite art. Okay, but like it feels like the middle is coming back all of a sudden, like just out of nowhere, where it's like a lot of really promising looking, definitely not the highest tier budget games, but games that are doing things that are interesting, or at least they're, you know, at the very least, these are brand new IP. These are not established characters. These are not established universes. And it's like they all look of a certain quality, and by that I mean they don't look bad by any means. And it's like, and also there's like a lot of really good like middle tier quality stuff that's actually a lot of fun. You know, see me talking about Slitterhead again. Yeah. To say nothing of the other like just like really high quality AAA stuff that's coming out as well. And it's like, the world is your oyster. Like, just go find some shit and play it. Like, it's not that hard. Like, I think you just don't like things. I think the problem is you. So
recent Focus Entertainment games: Space Marine 2, Banishers, Aliens Dark Descent, Expeditions, which I don't know if you guys played, was really interesting as well. World War One, Isanzo. I guess they're doing some Warhammer stuff. Boltgun was theirs. Atlas Fallen. They did Atomic Heart. They did a Plague Tale. Plague Tale's theirs. Evil West is theirs.
Fucking A. So like, that's a lot of really good games.
So like Focus makes stuff that's just a little. None of it feels particularly. There's like a quality to their overall brand where it's like everything is just a little left of mainstream, just like a little bit removed. Absolutely. Enough where their stuff is always, even if I don't like, Expeditions is a great example of a game that ultimately was not for me. It's an off-road exploration game. It's a little bit of resource management, but it's like you're in these off-road vehicles and you have to drive to certain areas and carry out whatever the task is in the area, and like you have to mine and then put it back in your truck and drive back, but the terrain is rough, so you have to like make sure your truck is strong enough to drive back on the terrain and like all that kind of stuff. And it was interesting, and it had a nice gameplay loop, even if it wasn't necessarily for me. And it's like it was really, it wasn't like I thought of it then and was like, yes, Focus. But in discussions now and seeing that it was theirs, because I didn't even realize that, it's like, yeah, that totally fits in with their stuff, where it's like, yeah, it's all interesting ideas. Like Expedition is full of interesting ideas, even if their gameplay, even if the game, I didn't keep playing it, I didn't fall in love with it. It's like I'll remember that one because it did things that I've never seen a game do before.
Yeah, and I was going to mention like because Annapurna Interactive was doing like a lot of really interesting publishing gigs too, and they had actually, I think it was like last year around E3, they had announced like this like kind of directive to like put the spotlight on like a lot of like cool indie horror games and stuff like that, and then the whole thing like imploded like a few months later. So womp womp. So I'm glad that Focus is out there like kind of still doing shit like that, because the word on the street is that like there's not a lot of like money out there and there's not a lot of shit getting greenlit, but you can't sell video games if you don't make video games. I don't know why like these suits don't seem to get that through their heads. But you just glossed over Avowed, John. What do you think of Avowed?
Oh, it's good.
Please, we don't have shit to talk about.
yeah, by all means.
It's good. I found it, my hope for it was, and it was, we talked, Julian and I talked a little bit about this earlier today because we saw Mike Fallick on the Discord, talking about,
we'll get there.
Yeah. Talking about it being like a Skyrim killer. And I had seen that in the gaming press of people kind of like referring to it as Skyrim killer before it came out. And my hope for it was just kind of like, I just hope it's high fantasy Outer Worlds. I don't necessarily need it to be a Skyrim killer. I would be totally satisfied if it was high fantasy Outer Worlds. And to me, that's what it was. I felt like even down to the way characters talk and things like that, it feels very Outer Worldsy to me. And the way,
a little bit.
Once you start to uncover the maps as well, like when you start exploring and uncover the maps, the thought behind map design, none of the enemies are procedurally generated. They're all placed. And that makes them specific to the design of the levels, which also feels very Outer Worlds, where it's like, yeah, you can go anywhere, but there's kind of roads are where stuff happens, more or less.
Yes.
And you can exhaust a map relatively quickly, like unlike Skyrim where it feels like endless and you can just keep walking and walking. This feels kind of like it's like, oh, you're gonna take it's like a nice hiking trail. Like you can take it up into the mountains and it's gonna turn around and it's gonna come back down to where you were. I really liked it. I don't think it was really kicking my butt early on when I first started playing it on normal, and I had lowered the difficulty to easy. And then on my second playthrough, actually, Julian, I put it on normal, and it requires you to rely on materials more. So I had to actually manage my potions and buy stuff and cook the food and stuff that's in the game, which on easy I wasn't necessarily having to do. I was just kind of like always staying healthy. And I could play it better too, because I understood the controls a little bit better. Not that they were hard to figure out, but there's the dual wielding, it's one of those games where it introduces the dual wielding like immediately, but I don't think it becomes second nature to you until a few hours into the game. Once you start to play with the grimoires, like you have these open books that have like spells. They have 4 spells when you have the book open. So you have like something in your hand, and if you have a grimoire in your hand, then it's like you also can do 4 spells while you're doing this other thing. So you can be using a sword and spells, a wand and spells, a gun and spells, a shield and spells, or 2 books of spells and just So it took a few hours before I got used to that. And it's good. It's good. It had I thought the story got better as it went along. I kind of was like, are they talking? They assume that you already know a whole lot about the pantheon of gods from Pillars of Eternity.
It really feels that way in the beginning. Yeah, I do remember this.
I think about halfway through it becomes clear that there's really only one god that there's, to avoid spoilers, there's really only one god that has a bearing on the story. And they give you enough context for that particular god and who her worshippers are and what her deal is that that you're like, oh, okay. So you get some ground under your feet, but again, that's hours into the game. You're like, okay, I got this now. Like, I understand it. And, and conversations start to have more context. You start to understand stuff a little bit more. But it does make an unusual assumption that you've played Pillars before and know what the races are, what the battles in the past were, and who the gods are. It wasn't enough. I mean, mission goals are still pretty clear. Hey, go get this person. Hey, go talk to this person. But a lot of the color of the game early on was just missing me because I had no background.
I know exactly what you're talking about. I was kind of feeling that myself in the time that I was playing it. Like it I don't even know if it assumes that you played those games so much, but it's throwing a lot of shit at you if you've never played those games. Like a lot, and a lot of it's just kind of like over my head, you know, like especially in that opening bit. But yeah,
are you bouncing off of it, Justin, or?
Oh, I haven't gone back to it yet. I played it that one time, and I was just it's not that I didn't like it or anything. I plan on going back to it, but I just kind of started doing other stuff, I guess.
How long did you play it?
No, I get it.
Well, about 4 hours, I think.
Okay. Did you get off
4 hours?
Did you get? So you got on the main first area. You got out of the training island. You got off a training island and into the city. Okay.
I met Garrus, whose name I've forgotten already. Yeah. But
I always think of him as, is he the same voice actor as the preacher man from Outer Worlds?
He might be. I'm not actually sure.
Every time he speaks up, I'm like, that's like the preacher guy from Outer Worlds.
Nobody mentioned that when Outer Worlds was out, so I feel that would have been like a thing that people would have commented on if because like here it's like, oh, it's just Garrus.
It's just like Garrus,
it's like the exact same voice.
Just immediately, I was like, oh yeah, no, that's a Garrus.
Yeah,
which was cool. No, I think the last thing I did was got on the road. To go do like a main thing. I did like a side quest before that, and then I got on the main road to go do a thing, and in kind of what you were talking about, like there is stuff on the road, so I kind of got sidetracked by something I seen, and that led to a spider cave or something.
Yeah.
And I fought some big ass spider in there, and then got out, and I was like, oh, that was pretty all right, and then it was time to do the podcast after that, admittedly. So yeah,
I gotta say though, like fantasy Outer Worlds for me is a Skyrim killer. Like that's kind of what I want from this game, because the idea of a first person fantasy game that actually doesn't feel like shit to play is like very exciting to me. And I will say that like in the little bit that I played, I was like, oh, this doesn't feel like shit to play. Like this, this, like I just thrust this spear at this dude, and it sure did feel like I thrusted a spear at a dude. You know, I haven't even gotten like magic or anything like that. I only played it for like 45 minutes or maybe if that. But it was enough to where I was like, oh no, I can totally see like how I'm gonna like kind of dig just like the moment to moment feel of it.
I wish it played a little better in third person than it does, but like that's asking probably a lot.
It's kind of funny. They actually mentioned that on the screen where it's like, you can select this, but it's not going to be as good, which I thought was a weird caveat for the game publisher, like the people who make the game to say, well, this is in here, but just be warned.
Just be warned, it's not very good. Because I remember reading it's in the opening options for you. It's like, hey, what camera perspective do you want? And I remember I was like, oh, well, let's try third person. That seems, and it warns you. It's like, yeah, it's probably not going to be as good. I was like, all right, I'll take my chances. And then I was immediately like, no, they're right. This does not feel good. So, and then I switched. I was like, okay, yeah, no, this is how you're supposed to play the game. Got it.
I was surprised that it even had that option, honestly. Like, I wasn't even expecting it to have that.
If we're comparing it to Skyrim has the same thing. You can go into third person. Why you would do that, no, like in the vanilla game, who knows? Because it's not a good way to play that game.
And there's something about, like Avowed does what some of my favorite first person games does, which is it actually makes you feel like you are that person where like, you know, I always do the foot test, right? I look down. Can I see my feet? Yes, I can. Okay, I feel like I'm an actual person in this world and not just floating hands. So like anytime that happens, they always get like a extra brownie point in my book.
I took my shoes off and looked down, and I saw my toes. I was like, oh,
there you go.
One of the things I have to give the developers props for is I think that they have subtly solved the platforming problem that some first person games have by you're very sticky. You're almost adhesive. So like if you jump, there's so many times in Avowed where I had to make a crazy jump and I thought there's no effing way.
There's no
and
way.
Sure enough, grab the lip and pull myself up. It's like whatever the collision detecting is between the object you have to jump to, they're really good about, and it never feels like you fly forward and stick to it. It's not fakey feeling. It literally feels like, oh, you just barely made it every single time. But there's something subtle going on with the collision detecting where it's like it is sticking you to the object instead of letting you plummet to your death.
Yeah, I agree. That now that I think about it, I climbed like that lighthouse that's in the like that first town.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And there was a bunch of times where I was like, oh, there's like, I'm probably supposed to come back here when I have a power, but like, all right, let me save the game real quick and just try just to see. And the sure as shit, every time I'd be like, oh, I made the jump. Okay, cool. That's all right. And I kept thinking like there was a bunch of little like tiny platforms too on that, because you're like kind of like walking on a little boards and stuff like that. And I was like, oh, I'm definitely going to fuck this up and fall off. Never really did. So it really actually feels pretty good in that aspect.
There's some stealth you can do later in the game. This isn't a spoiler, but there's like rafters and you can get up there, and if you can take a straight path across, or you can actually walk around the rafters, you know, and you'll see like a treasure chest over on some rafter and you'll be like, oh, okay, I got to get over to that rafter. But it definitely had Skyrim beat in regards to the quote unquote platforming. Although there's not a ton of it in Skyrim, but there is like a little bit.
Yeah,
you could still kind of do
mostly
the jump trick, the Skyrim jump trick.
I was just gonna say that it's mostly just keep jumping until you randomly ascend somehow, and it will usually work.
Well, this one was like jump. Oh, there is something I can grab, and then I'd grab and pull myself up, and I would be like, okay, cool, I'm on the surface of something.
Right.
Yeah, I liked it. I'll probably. Yeah, I thought I have a second playthrough working right now where I'm like, I'm gonna play as a heel. Like I'm gonna pick my character's background. The first playthrough, I was like an academic, as a scholar. This one, I'm like a blue blood, like a snooty blue blood, and everything. I'm like in the name of the Empire, like 100%. And what I'm discovering is that like there's like you can play it that way, but even if like characters would be like, help me find my dog, you know, or whatever, you know, side quest characters are like, excuse me, sir, will you please? I always think about The Witcher 3. Help me find my pan. the old lady who's looking for her pan. There's always those characters that are like, help me find my little brother, whatever. So like in Avowed, like you have the dialogue choice to be like, I'm too busy. But it's kind of weird playing as a heel. I'll say I'm too busy, and then they'll give you whatever it is and tell you to do it anyway. So they'll be like, okay, but if you stop by, here's the key to the house, and go and take care of it if you happen to pass by my house. Right. It's like, okay, like you can't, even companions, it's like, I would like to join you on your journey, and you're like, I don't need anybody to join me on my journey, and they're like, well, it doesn't matter, I'm coming anyways. You're just like, okay.
I don't hate that actually somehow. Like because you can, that way you can stay in character, but you don't miss anything, I guess. If that's how you want to do it, and if you don't want to do it, you don't have to.
I'm trying to get to, there's like the decisions that might alter the game don't happen until about halfway through the game. There's a kind of a pivot point decision a few hours in, or several hours in, not a few, and then there's a bunch of decisions right at the end of the game. And like I'm trying to get to the first big decision to see how different it becomes, because so far it's essentially the same game. Although even though characters are still asking me to do the side missions, if I'm saying no, I'm still I've been dedicated to not doing them, so they're on the checklist, but I'm like, I'm not going to go check it. I'm not going to your house. And we'll see. I kind of there's a part of me that's like a little reluctant to play through it a second time, if only because I know I'm going to want to play through it again when the DLC comes out.
The stuff
But
comes out.
I played
right?
Outer Worlds 3 times because I played it once, and I played it when the second DLC came out, and I played it when the third DLC came out. And and the good thing about a game like that is like it's the difference between something like Skyrim, which is like I have sank hours into Skyrim, and I don't know if I was even ever close to beating that game. Like,
yeah,
I have no. I don't know if I was. I literally don't know.
I have like thousands of hours. I've beaten it. I've beaten the main quest one time.
Yeah.
That's it.
And so the good thing about like these smaller Obsidian games is like, oh, the prospect right now, having just come off of beating it, is like, yeah, it's still fun, but like Outer Worlds, there's probably a break. You know, however long it was between the DLC, which to me feels like a year or two. Because I didn't pick up the second DLC until they got the next gen upgrade, and then I was like, okay, let me get the full package thing now, and then I played through it all. But the good thing about the size of those games is that the ability to play through them again is not as daunting as like if some other Bethesda game came out that required you to like go through the whole thing. It's like, you know, it's like Skyrim now. It's like I would love to start a new game of Skyrim, but like, do I really want to sink another like 60 hours in with no end in sight when I already have the saves that are already like at that point?
Yeah.
You know, but it's like I don't really want to restart from my save, but I also don't really want to go on the wagon ride all over again for the very first time. Like,
oh God, yeah.
So
I have a question about Avowed. Is there any good like standout characters or party members? Like, because I know I was just kind of curious.
I will tell you, I really liked. What is his name? Let me see the Avowed companions, because I cannot remember their names. That's how much I love them.
Oh, you're fine.
That's a good sign.
It's a good sign. I know. I do. Don't worry. I think I'm just bad with names most of the time.
If their names
especially
were
on
like
this show.
Matthew and Jennifer, that's one thing. But their names are
right.
Giada, Kai, Marius, and Yatzli, and so it's like I'm not going to remember.
Right.
So
those are bad names.
The least interesting one to me becomes the most interesting one. So Marius was the one that to me was like, he was fine. The game, they know what they're doing because he's reticent to talk to you. And when you get him in your party, he's like not interested in making chit chat when you camp. And like Kai will tell you, like, give him time. Well, when he finally does open up, like his backstory is interesting. The way they treat that stuff is interesting. They take some risks is like the wrong word, but much like how Dragon Age, what's the recent one called?
Veilguard.
And I've played that as well recently. Much as Dragon Age Veilguard tries to tackle like a modern issue in a fantasy lens, there are threads of Marius' story that try to tackle something serious through the lens of like this fantasy world. And I thought, this is not, God, it's so tricky to talk about Veilguard when your politics align to the game's politics, but you still are critical of the approach for certain things. It becomes difficult because you don't want to become yet another voice in the criticisms, even though you may have your own valid criticisms. But I thought that the handling of modern material through the fantasy lens was done with a greater deal of sensitivity in Avowed. I'm trying to avoid spoilers. Maybe in a year I can tell you, or I don't know, but we'll talk offline. But
sure.
But yeah, I ended up really liking Marius. I liked everybody in my party. But Kai is one of those characters where it's like he early on is like fun, and then as the plot progresses, it gets farther away from him, so he becomes less of a. He's just like he becomes like a side comment, like he says little things every now and then, but he becomes less vested in the overall story versus the other three characters who become way more important to the overall plot of Avowed. But yeah, Marius was my favorite companion, I think, overall, when all was said and done.
Okay. So So there's some shit in there.
Yeah.
All right, got it. Cool.
Yeah.
And now, a word from our sponsors.
Hey, you. Everything sucks right now, doesn't it? You know it. I know it. We all know it. Doesn't it just make you want to scream? Ah! Sure, you could do that, but you're not a dick, and you don't want to bother your neighbors. So come on down to the Scream Shack. At the Scream Shack, we have multiple soundproof rooms where you can scream until you're blue in the face. No! With our VIP suites, you can simulate screaming into an empty movie theater, the Grand Canyon, or even the endless void. Come to the Scream Shack. It won't fix anything, but you'll feel slightly better. And book soon. Our rooms currently have a 3-month waiting list. Before we move on, Justin, I think it is a good time to thank our patrons.
Okay, sure. We can do that.
We appreciate all of our lovely patrons. And this being the first episode of the month, hey, I guess I'll be 45 when this episode comes out. Hurrah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We are going to thank all of our patrons, starting with the executive producers tier. We have Addy XD.
We have Big Baker.
We have Bookie.
We have Casey Curran.
We have David Portnoff.
We have Dennis Robertson.
We have Eric Peacock of the Soundtracker Podcast.
We have Xrian.
We have Game Johnson of the Retrofits YouTube channel.
We have Matt Jorgensen.
We have Philip P.K. Becker.
We have Raymond Crumb, in parentheses, The Enigma.
Yes, I'm fascinated by the people who support the show that I've never interacted with or had any feedback from, because Raymond started as a key grip and then upgraded to executive producer and then downgraded to key grip again. And I had mentioned that we had someone downgrade, we had some people upgrade. I wasn't saying that to call anybody out. I was just kind of making people aware that, this is where we're at on our journey to $100 a month. But then, so after that episode came out, he re-upgraded. I wasn't trying to guilt trip you, Raymond, but I am fascinated by you. I want to know more about you. I want to know more about all of our patrons. I mean, all of our listeners, really. But but I'm just fucking fascinated. I'm like, what is your life? Who are you?
Is that all it takes? Is you just have to put the enigma in parentheses? Like if somebody's name said the mystery, would you also be as equally fascinated by them? Is it the name that?
No, because I'm the one that put.
He's the one that added it.
Oh,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I put that on purpose to remind myself to mention that I'm fucking fascinated by Raymond Crumb's journey.
Yes.
Okay. I was like, what a coincidence that they said they were mysterious and you find them mysterious.
Raymond Crumb, you are loved.
Yes, all of you are. We have 60 Does Stuff. Thanking you again for your upgrades.
We have Stephen Lobo.
We have Xavier Krager.
And at the associate producers tier, we have Andrew Wilson.
We have Dr. Delicious.
We have the guy on the podcast right now, John Gholson.
Hey, it's that guy that I am.
Huzzah.
Yeah.
We have Joshua Moncrief.
We have Lazy Bocas.
We have Weston from Big Nerd Gaming. Another upgrade. Thank you, Weston. Man.
And at the free tier, we have Daft Man.
And last but certainly not least, we have Restuff. Thank you to all of you for supporting the show, either with money or just joining the Patreon page. It means a lot, especially as I move into this new phase of my life where the show is going to be more difficult to put together because I am fucking fried. So I have not done much this week, game-wise or otherwise, because I did start my new job on Monday. And also, I was dealing with not having my car, and I didn't mention it when I announced the job. So I'll be vague, but I am working. It's a state government job, which means a lot of stuff. One is that I'm stuck here now. I guess I really wanted to get out of Texas, but now my fortunes are tied to Texas. It probably means that just for my personal mental health, I will probably be commenting less on politics just in general, in a public setting. I just get the feeling that I just want to kind of compartmentalize my work and the podcast even more than I already did previously. Like, I'm not going to say like what department I'm working in or what I'm actually
That's
doing.
probably for the best. Yeah.
Yeah, I will say that what I'm doing is something that I think is a very good thing that it feels good to be a part of, like, as opposed to just like, you know, being the bottom line or like making the bottom line go up for, you know, the boss man. But so I have always been like a big fish in a small pond, like everywhere that I've worked, in the sense that I've always like striven, probably striven.
I don't know.
Strove.
Yeah.
I've always done my best to be the best wherever I work. Like, I always bust my ass to just really like shine and kind of rise above. And part of that is just like work ethic. Part of that is just some weird thing in me where it's like, no, I'm gonna be the best at this position. You know, like even if I'm not interested in moving up, I just want to be like, no, I'm really valued in this role, blah blah blah. But now the pond is the whole state of Texas. And like I am definitely feeling that I do not belong. I feel so out of my depth. And like I'm like, I don't even really know what I do yet. Like, basically, you know, my current manager is a previous manager that I had like pre-pandemic. And so like that's kind of how I was able to get the job. And she thinks very highly of me, and I'm really glad of that. You know, it's kind of like that work ethic and that drive to like be the best, you know, is paying dividends, you know, years later. But at the same time, it's like, oh man, I like there's just a lot.
I'm sure.
And also like I did not, when I took the job, I kind of wasn't really cognizant of what it meant to take a state government position.
Yeah.
Like I am now technically a public servant, which I was like, oh, that's you know, when I think public servant, I think someone that got elected, or, you know, like a police officer or a firefighter or something like that. You know, I don't think someone's just like pushing paper in an office. And it being government, there's so many acronyms, and they are not interested in bringing a new person up to speed. You just got to figure it out. I even asked like someone like on one of the teams, because there's multiple teams. I was like, hey, is there by any chance like a you know, like a list of like common acronyms like for you know, this department? And they were like, oh, hold on, let me check. And they're like, nope. There's like a note that says that like they would like it to be added, but it hasn't been added yet. And so now I'm just like, all right, I you know, and now I have like this Word document that I'm just like adding like you know, abbreviations to, and then filling them in as I learn them.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to start asking questions, but it's like I have been in more meetings in the last 5 days than I've been in the last 2 years combined.
Nice.
And it's just my first week.
Yeah.
And there's just so much jargon being thrown around. And it's like I'm hesitant to ask questions because it's like y'all are moving so fast, and you obviously have a lot of shit to do. I saw my manager's schedule because she shared it with me, like, you know, just to kind of, I think she just does that for the whole team so they kind of know like where she's going to be. She's just like wall to wall meetings almost every day, like 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. with the exception of like lunch. It's just like meeting after meeting after meeting after meeting.
I imagine.
And then somehow I guess she gets stuff done like in the downtime during meetings where she's not like the active person talking. It's a lot. They haven't really like trained me on hardly anything yet, and I'm like, okay, like, are you expecting me to just like kind of know this job? Because also like I'm like the tier 3 of this job, which is like the senior position.
Oh boy.
Of this job. And I'm like, okay, like, I'm glad that you think that like that you wanted me on your team, but like, okay, I don't know it. I'm really hoping this doesn't like blow up in my face, and like, you know, a year later they're just like, it's not working out, or even like 6 months later, I guess, is like the, you know, that's like the big, the first like big like, you know, probation hurdle or whatever.
As the old saying goes, just fake it till you make it. Just pretend like you know what you're doing, even if you don't. Fuck it.
Well, and that's what I have to keep telling myself, right? Because like, you know, I have seen, you know, firsthand that there are plenty of people who have like far more schooling than me that were far less effective at their jobs than I was. Right. But today was like, I had to like put together like a little bio for myself when they announced that I've been hired, that I'm on the team. And part of it was like, put your education. I'm like, I really would like to not call to attention that I only have a high school diploma, but I understand if I have to have this in here, but it's just like, oh yeah, that's really going to expose me. Cause like there's another guy who started like just about a week before me and he's got like an MBA and he's like ex-military and he's also worked in this exact type of field before. And it's like, oh man, okay. Like I don't know. But anyway, what ended up happening was, I let my manager know before I started. I was like, hey, my car crapped out on me because I was supposed to be in office all this week, right, and all of next week. And I said, if and I suggested pushing my start date a week, which wouldn't have been ideal for me because I would have had like a gap in, pay weeks and stuff. But I could eat it if I had to. And she was like, no, you know what? It's fine. Like I have your laptop. I can bring that to you on the weekend and you can get started remotely. I was like, okay, cool. She was only able to bring the laptop. They didn't have the docking station or my monitors. I was like, okay, that's fine. And then come Monday morning, because like I had to do like orientation on my personal laptop.
Okay.
And then they kind of give you credentials to log in on the work laptop. So I go to do that and I'm like, I can't connect to anything. And it wouldn't connect to my Wi-Fi because government computer. So it had to be hardwired in. But it is like a very, very bare bones laptop, like no Ethernet jack. So there wasn't a way for me to even hardwire. And honestly, I was thinking about this because like, what about people who work remote but don't? Because like when I set up my office, I made sure to have like an actual like jack so that I could hardwire into my work computer because I wanted to have as stable a connection as I could. But I'm sure there's plenty of people who are just like, no, Wi-Fi is fine. Yeah. But like, how would you set that up if you can't, anyway, that's neither here nor there. Yeah. So, it was like, well, can you come into the office today so they can get you fixed up? And I was like, yeah. And I was like, I guess I'm going to have to Uber. But then I texted the lovely John Gholson and asked, hey, are you doing anything today? Like, do you have any auditions or anything? And he ended up being free with the exception of like a thing that he had to do by the end of the day. And so he picked me up, took me to work. And, I worked the rest of the day in the office, got everything situated. I got my docking station and everything, did a little bit of orientation stuff, sat in on a meeting, met some people, kind of got shown around a little bit on some of the systems. And John was nice enough to pick me up after work. Nice. And we decided, John, can you tell the story from here? Because like crazy shit happened to us on the way back to your place. So, but you know more of it than I do.
So I had, I had just come on. That day was super packed for me because I had an audition that was a pretty important one that I had kind of messed up. And so I had done it on Sunday night thinking I was all free and clear. And then Monday morning I had to fix it all. Got done fixing it all, got the text from Julian, and I still had another audition to do that was like a 5-part audition. Typically, with an audition like that, where it has multiple things, they'll audition you for one, and if they think you're right for something, they'll just plug you in. Like, oh, okay, we could see that you can do that. Yeah. Instead of being the librarian, you're going to be the guy in the library reading the book. We liked you and we liked your face enough, but we're going to move you over here because we like this person as a librarian better. This particular audition was like every single person that appears in the commercial. Like, will you act out every single thing that appears in the commercial individually with costume changes, which is like abnormal. That's not the way they usually go.
That is kind of strange. It sounds like, yeah.
So I was like, man, I got a full day coming up with this stuff. And there's certain things in it too that I was like, man, I could really use somebody else. So when Julian called and was like, hey, I need a ride to work, it was self-serving because I was like, oh, here we go. Julian can help me do this thing that I need to do later in the day. So the other thing geographically is like I'm 30 minutes south of Julian and 30 minutes north of where Julian works. So it was a lot of day in my car. I went and got Julian and then took him to where he works. and then went home for just a little bit. I thought I was going to be able to get some maybe a couple of the auditions in from the list, and I just didn't have time. So I went back, picked him up, and he offered dinner and gas. And so there's a place over here in Pflugerville called Buddha Burger, and it's run by this guy who's like a Toronto transplant who moved to Texas to open his dream burger restaurant. And like people, there's not really a lot of destination restaurants in Pflugerville. People go to Austin. Like if they're going to go eat, you're going to get Best Burger. You're going to go to like Jew Boy in Austin or someplace like Casino or whatever. You're going to eat Austin. You're not going to eat Pflugerville. And I was like, I get the chance to like introduce Julian to Buddha Burger. So we go to Buddha Burger's located inside of a Chevron. It's like, it's like, it's got its own counter and everything inside the Chevron. And so we go to Buddha Burger to get our burgers, and a guy walks in and is like, "Hey, anybody got jumper cables? There's a girl out here who needs a ride." And it was like, "Oh, I have I could picture they were in my back seat actually." I was like, "Yeah, I have jumper cables." So I go outside and I'm like, "Hey, I have cables." And she's like, "Okay." And she's a hospice nurse. But she's kind of like very, very agitated, very high strung. And as we're getting the jumper cables hooked up, a guy in a UPS truck is like, "I have a jump box." And it's like, "Oh, okay, well, let's try that instead." Because I'm reading the instructions on the jumper cables. I use them so infrequently. I'm like, I don't know.
Okay.
Like, I know it's like you connect one, you connect one, you connect one, you connect one, but they have to be in like a certain order.
Meanwhile, while this is going on, I'm only vaguely aware. Like, I heard John like talk to somebody and then leave, but I didn't know what was happening, and I'm just like kind of waiting for the food, and I pick up the food and I'm just kind of like sitting like in the little, they had like a little place where you could eat if you wanted to, and I'm like, okay, I don't know if we're gonna eat here or if we're taking it home, and like he's out there for a really long time and I don't want to leave the food, and then finally like I look up, it's like, oh, he's like helping someone like jump their car. I'm like, okay, I'll just sit and wait, and you know, I'm like, that's it's vintage John Gholson to help someone in need.
So, but then I also didn't know that I thought Julian was just inside. So the flip of this was me going, man, it's taking forever for this food, because I kept waiting for Julian to come back out, because I was outside this whole time, and he never came out with the food. So the UPS guy is like, all right, let me use my jump box. He tries his jump box. His jump box doesn't work. He's like, okay, I'll see you later. So I'm going to hook up my stuff. So
hold on. He just tries it and is just like, well, that didn't work. Goodbye.
Because I'm there and I have my cables and everything. So he tries his thing and he leaves. And so I hook up I hook up the cables. I know it's like positive, positive, negative, negative. And when you unplug, it's got to be negative, negative, positive, positive. You do the reverse order when you unplug it. So I hook it up and let the car run, and her car still doesn't start. And she goes over and immediately starts undoing stuff. And I was like, wait. You can't just start unplugging things. Like, you have to follow the opposite order of the way that they were plugged. And she was like, she stopped and was like, is it going to shock me? It's going to shock me. Is it going to shock me? It's going to shock me. And I was like, no, I don't know if it's going to shock you or not. I said, that's why I was like, don't just start unplugging everything. We got everything undone and then tried to hook it up again, because we thought maybe we had the negative on my car. I thought might have been in the wrong spot. She wasn't positive about the positive on her car. So we do that for a minute. It's not running. I was like, look, would you live around here? She was like, yeah, I live right down the road. And I was like, okay. Oh, by the way, I should mention, she has an elaborate Silent Hill tattoo. Maybe full sleeve. Maybe that'll be like a patron exclusive, and I can drop it in the Discord. I'll put the photos of her tattoo exclusively for paid subscribers. So Julian, just text me when this episode goes up right away, so I can drop that in the patron. But because the photo is just her arm. It's like this elaborate. Silent Hill, like all the characters from the Silent Hill games. It's just like, it's beautiful. That's cool. It's honestly really, really good. It's a great tattoo.
Oh yeah.
But I say, hey, where do you live? She's like, I live just down the road. I was like, okay, I could probably give you a ride. I said, I just want you to feel safe. I said, I'm here with somebody else. It's just the two of us. And she goes, oh, no. I would eat your ass. I was like, what? She goes, I would eat your ass right now for a ride home. And I was like, all right, well, I just wanted burgers. I was like, I appreciate the offer. Then that's when I go in to get Julian, and like he's just sitting there with the burgers, just happy, just like
just eating.
He's not eating. I was like,
no, I wasn't eating. I was like, I don't know if we're here or if we're going.
I was like, oh no, I'm out here helping this girl. So she gets all her stuff. She puts it in my car. We're about to leave, and a guy in a truck pulls up and is like, oh, do you need a jump? And she's like, yeah. And he goes, I have a jump box. And she's like, okay. So she takes all her stuff out of my car, puts it back in her car. This guy tries the jump box. Her car doesn't start. He leaves. I think she asked me to try the cables one more time. I don't remember. Or did she just transfer her stuff over? Anyways.
No, she just transferred
her stuff over. I'm sitting here as a person who has done the jump thing multiple times. My car that I still have is notorious for just the battery just dying out of nowhere for no reason. Yeah. Like it just does that. So I got pretty good at this, and I'm sitting here like, no, if none of those things worked the first time, you have a different problem. Like, I've been around these things enough to, I'm like, no, there's something else going on here. But anyway, continue. This is entertaining.
We're getting in the car, and she's like, oh, by the way, would you give me a ride to the other Valero? I know that's really weird because we're at this Valero now, but will you give me a ride to the other Valero? And it's not a Chevron, it's a Valero station, because now I remember that detail. But she was like, okay. And I was kind of like, I'm friendly enough, but in my head, I'm going like, really? Like, you want me to start taxing you around? Like, I'm offering you a ride home. I felt like it was like, that's when it was probably not perceptible on any level to anyone on the outside, but that's when on the inside, I'm like, are you kidding me? Like, I'm taking you to...
that was me too. I was like, that's a thing you sure did just say, huh? Like, I don't know why. Like...
Yeah, at that point, call it quits. But yeah, that's weird.
I'm like, are you talking about that one that's like just down the road? And she's like, yeah. The other Valero, the one that's just down the road. I'm like, okay. So I drive, and I think it's because I asked her, is it the one that's on the corner across from the elementary school? She's like, yeah, in conversation. So we're driving towards that one, and then she's like, no, this is the wrong one. Like, no, turn around. And then I'm like, what? Well, and then she was like, no, well, go ahead and just take me to my apartment. It's right there. And I was like, okay.
Yeah, because what happened was, we were just kind of like chit-chatting, right? Like, like she's apparently from Utah originally, moved here, which I wanted to tell her that my co-host like lived there for a while, and he's still fascinated with Utah and Mormons.
I was going to say she definitely is not from, or if she is from Provo, then was not LDS. I can tell you that. With the tattoo sleeve, that is a big no-no in that whole thing. So definitely.
Well, she could be former,
maybe, and very rebelled against it. So yeah, that's possible.
But no, so she kind of, so what was, because I heard her say this, like she forgot to point out the other gas station, and John thought it was this other one. She's like, oh no, it's not that one. She's like, it's fine, just my apartment's right up there.
Okay,
so that's how that went down. It was still really weird.
That is weird.
And so we dropped her off, and she showed me her tattoo because John told me to. Sorry, he had her show me before we got in the car, but then we talked a little bit about like Silent Hill and horror games, like right before she like left. It was kind of cool. I haven't talked to like a woman that I don't know in a really long time, so like I didn't really like I at a certain point I just didn't know what else to say.
We should have got her on the show. We could have asked her all about this things. Why did she need to go to the other gas station? I have so many questions now.
Yeah, well, and so then after
okay, are they going to be
Julian engaged her in a conversation about the Evil Inside 2 or whatever, Evil Within 2?
Evil Within, yeah.
Which I thought was interesting. Like, that's kind of not that that's a deep cut. I mean, I know that game sold millions, but from a pop culture standpoint, Silent Hill is known, and that one's not known.
Oh yeah, one had a movie. One was like a video game that was made.
That's what I'm saying is that like. I didn't know what to say after she mentioned Evil Within 2. I was just like, yep, that's a good one. I like that one.
Oh, Julian.
But so, she leaves and, we're on our way. And then John tells me about that I could have had my ass ate. Like, I wish that had been like communicated to me earlier.
Well,
because it's been a long time. Like,
Oh,
I'll eat
you
ass any
guys.
day of the week, but like the woman who's going to eat your ass is a very, very rare thing. That's all I'm saying.
But I had an audition to get to.
Man, no Shasta McNasty button. It
I'm-
is a new day.
You know, it was
the
it was
State
a,
Select
it was,
podcast.
It was a story. It was a story in context. So we're not going to go there. It's fine. You fucking millennials are all into this weird shit now. Let's just move on with our lives.
We did get the because the Buddha Burger guys from Toronto, they have poutine on the menu, and there's like
which I was very excited
no
for.
places in Austin have poutine. Like it's
Right.
it's a rare bird, and so we had cold poutine, which was still fine, but like I wish my only like real regret out of all of it is that like our food was cold, and Buddha Burger's good, but like it was cold Buddha Burger, which is like
It was
fine, but yeah, you're.
And asses remained
And,
uneaten.
and asses remained uneaten. But my audition guy, Julian, helped me. We ate, and then he helped me with my audition. That's what that photo,
which was very
that
fun.
photo of me looking up at him. We had to change positions because I was filming, and I'm a doctor. I'm supposed to be taking his like checking his heart with my stethoscope, and then like have a conversation with him. And I did that, and I looked back at the footage, and I was like, "Oh, you look like you're 20 feet tall." Like, and that audition, I'm just like looking straight up at him, and so then Julian had to,
and it was so weird because like in the actual moment, like when we were filming it, like that's not how it was perceived. Like when I was looking at John, it was like, yeah, like he's like slightly looking up at me, but like the way that it's shot, like it, I look like a giant for some reason.
It's pretty funny.
The other thing was that because like he wasn't sending the audio, he just had to like pretend to be, he just had to like have his mouth moving that looks like he's like talking. So we were just like saying like dumb shit, and like I'm actually surprised that you could use any of them because he made me break so many times where I'm like visibly like laughing, like my shoulders are moving up and down because I'm laughing so hard. Which he sent me the video for. I might try to convert that into audio and put it as an outtake on the episode because it was very entertaining for me.
It was good. I got it turned in. I didn't feel. That's the thing about that pantomime stuff is like I don't. If I get it, I get it, but I don't feel it's kind of weird because the easier jobs we would think would be the pantomime ones, but I have less confidence in auditions where it's like, turn on your AC and smile with satisfaction. It's like, okay, like those are weirder to me than like, oh, you have dialogue. Like dialogue ones, a lot of those I'm like I feel good. Like I'm like, oh, I did something interesting. Now I'm also not booking any of the stuff, so maybe I'm not doing anything interesting, but I leave those with a greater sense of confidence than I do the ones that are like you're a dad and you put a bicycle helmet on a kid, and it's like, okay, like that those are weird. They're weird to me. And this was 5 of those in a row, 5 pantomime ones in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, because especially like the pantomime ones, like a lot of the stuff is like this is kind of more robotic, like this isn't like exact, like there's something like unrealistic about it, but and those commercials are always that way. I'm not saying that your pantomime was unrealistic. It's just those types of commercials or those types of like scenes always look that way to me. Whenever you're watching like a training video at work or something like that, and it's like someone pretending to work, but they're not like talking.
We'll never have it.
It always comes across
as
like
good
that.
as we had it with the hip hop Wendy's training videos. We will never have it that good ever again.
What's the one that went viral about 2 years ago with the carving station guy that's like ready for the big game? Did you guys see?
Oh man,
it's like some buffet. It's like old settlers buffet or something. It's like a Golden Corral competitor, and there was a clip of the guy going viral where he's like dead inside, and he's carving this prime rib, and the guy comes up with the plate, and like none of the customers talk to him, so he's like talking to them without them talking back to him. So he's like, "Did you see the big game?" And that was like the clip that went viral. Anyways,
that's great.
There was someone that Justin and I watch, Wooly was watching, like he'll do like his slop streams where he's just reacting to shit, and he and his wife were watching one. I think it was a training video for like Game Exchange or some like
All right.
video game store in like the 90s, and it was like this like white lady in her early 30s is like, you know, in the thing, and she's like, here it's so and so, we've got the mad hookups, and
Oh, yeah.
it's just like the cringiest shit.
Oh man, they're all so bad. They never. It was great. Bust out those 6 VHS tapes and fucking prepare to sit here for half an hour. Because yes, we need 6 VHS tapes for half an hour. I didn't get the hip hop training videos. I was so disappointed when I worked at Wendy's. That was something I learned later. But man, is it Old Country Buffet, John?
Yeah, I just
videos?
posted it in our chat. The original carving guy. You can even tell from the thumbnail. Like, it's like he's smiling, but that's not a smile. Like, that's just like, Anyhow, at KB, ours was the training video I remember was plop it on top, which is that when they come up to the register, you're supposed to take something from the cash wrap. I don't know if you remember, KB Toys used to have a bunch of junk around the register, like that weird candy that came in like a toothpaste tube, and like batteries and like little wind up toys were all over the KB register. And the thing with KB is you're supposed to plop it on top. So somebody comes up with their purchase, grab something from your immediate vicinity and be like, did you want some cowtails with this? Like, we had the cowtails, the caramel with the cream in the middle.
Yeah.
Or like, or like, hey, did you want a battery with this today? Or, hey, we got coloring books, or like whatever it is, and like plop it on top. Now, batteries was the one that they were always pushing. I think because it was like easier to go, do you need some batteries? And you take it, and you take the object and you put it in your hand and you literally stack it on top of the customer's purchases.
No, John. No, you plop it on top.
You plop it on top. I had trouble with that. I was not very committed to plopping things on the top. I had the same issue at Suncoast when we used to have to push the EW subscriptions, and people would come up and buy, like, you know, whatever movie they're buying, and be like,
what did you
hey,
when did you work at Suncoast?
Christmas of 2000 and change. You know what? Christmas 2004. Christmas 2004.
I graduated high school that year.
What the fuck? Did we have like a little bit up there where we weren't talking?
What was going on in 2004?
I mean,
Justin was in high school when he graduated.
That's when Game Fellas was about. Yeah. That was like the year before Game Fellas went down.
So like Lakeline stuff was happening, right? Like you were busy at Lakeline.
Yeah.
I was going through a divorce. Like, but that was the last Christmas I was in Austin before I moved to Savannah. I worked at Suncoast just that Christmas, at Barton Creek Mall. And I met Michael Moorcock, the creator of Elric, the high fantasy evil.
See, now that I remember.
Yeah. Because I looked at his credit card and I was like, whoa, Michael Moorcock, like, are you the creator of Elric?
Wait.
And he was like, yeah.
You were working at Suncoast at the same time as the movie theater?
And
because I remember you telling me the Michael Moorcock story when we were working at Cinemark.
I can't remember when I left Game Fellas when they were on Brody and Slaughter or Sunset or whatever the heck, like when they were in that weird strip mall. I can't remember when I stopped working there. But
that would have been like between, like,
I think it was spring 2004,
summer of 2004, and then 2005.
Yeah, I thought it was spring 2004 when I finally was like, yeah, I can't keep doing this. And then that would have put me at the theater and Suncoast. Yeah, I was working at both at the same time.
Okay.
There you go.
That makes more sense because that's also because things were getting bad for me as well.
So and I was about to move to Crockett, you know, and then we picked back up because I remember you coming to Crockett and stuff like that. But that's like that weird time where my whole life was changing. Anyways, the Suncoast story.
Watched Batman Begins and I bought the original God of War off of you. But they used to have the thing where it was like you were constantly asking people for magazine subscriptions, like you were a
high school were raising money for band uniforms. It's like you're like standing there in Suncoast and like somebody comes up with a copy of something. It's like, do you want 6 free weeks of Entertainment Weekly? Now, my problem with that is I had signed up with that. I had canceled, and then they kept sending it to me, and I was getting billed for it. And I was like, I've already canceled, and I had to get on the phone with them, and it was a whole deal. So I was reticent to ask strangers to go through the hell that I went through on the phone trying to extricate myself from my relationship with Entertainment Weekly. And I'd get in trouble, like legit trouble. Like, you know, you have to do it. Like, this is part of the job. Like, you have to get those numbers up. And it's like, I don't know. I'm seasonal and I don't want to.
I hate that type of robotic shit that they make you do in things like that. Like, if it makes sense, it makes, you know, then by all means, like if you're having a conversation with a customer or something, or, you know, like it seems like something that might be something they're into, then sure. But
we need more people in this world like my late grandmother, who was furious when Toys R Us asked her to join the rewards program. Was furious. Was like fists clenched in rage. Where is your manager? And I had to talk her down like she was about to fight a guy at a bar. Like, it was a whole thing.
See, if I end up becoming an old person, I don't want to be that old person.
No, you don't. You don't want to be lovely Phyllis. May she rest in peace. You don't want to be her. But at the same time, it was funny sometimes. And so I had to literally talk her down and be like, and get in the car and be like, you can't do this to people. It's their job. They have to do that. I don't care. It's disrespectful. Like, it's not, actually. You just say no and move on, woman.
You could feel it like it at Game Fellas, like, if somebody was like, I'm getting this game for a kid, I don't know if they'll like it, it's a birthday present, then it was so easy to go, okay, yeah, we also have the guide over there if you're interested in the guide.
Oh,
and
yeah.
then they would go like, okay, so like there's organic ways to do it, or like, oh, I see you buying this Pokemon thing. You know, we got some new wall scrolls like just last week and they're all right here. And then suddenly you're selling those too.
Yeah.
And it's like, there's organic ways to do it, but I have a really difficult time with the inorganic like sales. And then I worked a sales job, like a feet on the pavement sales job for a web company in Savannah. And I just don't have it in me. Whatever that thing is that makes people ask people to buy stuff is like, it's hard for me.
Yeah, same here. Like, you know, talking to my dad more recently, like, you know, he keeps trying to, well, now I think he's going to be fine because I told him that I got this job, and so maybe that'll keep him off my back about it. But you know, he's always trying to recommend like fields for me. And he like, a big thing is like sales, and it's like, no, you don't understand. Like, I do not have the disposition for this. Like, like I don't want to say like I'm not sleazy, but you know, but I'm not. Well, you know, I mean, I'm sleazy in a different way, but not in the like slicked back hair,
as is evident by previous comments on this very episode. You know.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, you know, that's been mostly my week. I mean, it wasn't a bad week. It was just a lot, right? Like Monday in particular was a pretty long day. Like I was wiped out, and I've been wiped out most evenings. But Tuesday, when not when I got home, Tuesday, not long after I got off work, Like a Dragon pirate Yakuza in Hawaii was sitting on my my porch.
All right.
Along with another volume of Berserk, because I you know,
you got to keep going.
Well, and I also scared myself when I mentioned that, like, oh shit, Dark Horse is owned by Embracer Group, so like there's a very real chance that these books go out of print, like in the near future.
Yeah, I forgot about that. That was the main thing, right? Yeah, shit, and I keep forgetting to order them. Shit.
Yeah, now's the time, Justin, as somebody who has been the person who went, oh, I should have gotten those books. comics is so volatile right now that that's a good idea.
Yeah. You know what? Well, go ahead, continue your story, and we may be doing some buying here.
Yeah, so, if you don't know, this is a direct, not sequel, but is a direct continuation of Like a Dragon Infinite Wealth. If you have not played Infinite Wealth and you want to, I would say do not pay close attention to Pirate Yakuza in Hawaii coverage. I will say I'm not going to spoil anything as far as its connection to Infinite Wealth. It's not important for what I'm going to talk about. I've also only played the first chapter.
Mm-hmm.
But it is absolutely the zaniest thing that RGG has done for this franchise. Fist of the North Star is its own thing. When they did that game, that's probably zanier than anything they've done, period. But it's Fist of the North Star. It kind of comes with the territory. But as far as within the Like a Dragon franchise, this is 1,000% the craziest shit they have. Well, I take that back. There's that zombie one that we haven't gotten
that one's
over
pretty.
here.
Yeah, that one's pretty.
That might be the craziest one, but I can't. I don't know, man. And it's interesting because a lot of people will say oh yeah, now this series is an RPG because of the 7th and 8th games. But once I started playing these games, I was like, they've always been RPGs. They were just always action RPGs. And now the last couple of mainline ones are turn-based RPGs. And in true RPG fashion, you're playing as Goro Majima for the first time since Yakuza 0. And he washes up on a island in Hawaii and he has lost his memory, which is so incredibly RPG. It's beautiful. Oh, yeah. But also it actually does a really important thing, which is divorced from his previous trauma and also just a lifetime of living in the Yakuza world. Majima is kind of a stand-up dude.
Right.
And so there's an interesting core of his character that comes through that I haven't really seen before, which is oddly close to Ichiban as far as just this innate desire to do the right thing by people and just kind of be a genuinely good dude. And it's a very convenient amnesia too. I love it because he remembers enough that once people point out his tattoos, he remembers enough that he was ex-Yakuza, and he has a part where he's I think I'm actually not a very good guy. Mm-hmm. But that's kind of all he remembers. But then but when he needs to remember that he lived in Kamurocho, he remembers that. And just things like that. It's just whenever the plot dictates that he needs to know something,
right,
he knows it. But otherwise he doesn't remember shit, including his name. And it's very funny that the kid who rescues him, Noah, who is a very good kid. As far as kid characters go, he's actually a very well-written, well-acted kid. Let me just say that he mops the floor with fucking Ken from Persona 3.
Okay.
But he's got a pet tiger that he named Goro, which happens to be Majima's first name.
Mm.
But something about that resonates with Majima, so that's what Majima ends up naming their ship. And also they're the Goro Pirates, but it's that's a really cute way of still naming everything after Majima, but he doesn't realize that it's named after him.
Right.
But it's got this framing device with the storytelling where he is telling you the story of what happened, and he's just sitting in this luxurious throne, in his pirate outfit, and telling you the story. And it literally does the shit where it pauses the screen, type of hey, you're probably wondering how I got here.
Yeah.
Not exactly that thing, but it's like that.
In media res, yeah.
It's so crazy. And there be pirates in this here game, and it's a thing where it's it's crazy to everybody, right? It's not just that all of a sudden there's pirates and it's just normal for people. It's no, everybody you talk to is this is fucking stupid and these guys are fucking crazy. But all of a sudden, about 7 years ago, these guys just started dressing like pirates and they started having high seas battles. And
well, why wouldn't
there's
you?
There's this place called Madlantis where they all congregate and they have ship to ship battles and they bury treasure, and everybody's just on board. It's just whatever. And it's not even it's not even they're like modern pirates. It's like they have old timey pirate ships and they're dressing and talking like old timey pirates. And it's so dumb.
That
I
does
love
sound
it
dumb.
so
It's great.
so very much.
I want
sounds
it.
good.
I want it so bad.
It's incredible. And it's very quick. Like you get your ship like in the first chapter.
I believe it.
So
yeah.
like, I thought it was going to take a while to like get to that point. It's like, no, you be a pirate. And then, but it's also like the Yakuza thing where it's like, but pirates in the old days used to stand for something, and they went on these adventures and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
and it's like we're gonna be like like our reputation is gonna precede us, and we're gonna be these noble pirates. And it's like, what the fuck?
Yes,
it is more of the hack and slash variety.
Yeah,
I will say that it seems so far it seems more balanced than the previous games. The bosses that I've fought so far, they have not had like the crazy life bars that you expect.
Yeah. Okay.
They haven't been blocking like 80% of my attacks the way that they usually do. It's been a little bit more give and take. Like you still want to be locked on and you want to be dodging and blocking, but it's not that war of attrition that a lot of the hack and slash games end up being. Or sorry, the beat 'em up games. Right. It's hack and slash here.
Either one.
In one form he's using a dagger, in the other he's using twin cutlasses.
Oh well, there you go.
This one is the first game to add a jump and aerial moves,
Ooh.
which I was super excited for until I pressed the jump button.
Oh, good.
It's a really bad jump.
Yeah, well,
it's very stiff, and you can only actually jump when you're neutral.
Oh,
so like
that's weird.
Yeah. You've got to like plan to jump.
Yeah.
And once you're in the air, you kind of have like limited things that you can do. There are launchers that you unlock, and there's certain moves that will turn into aerial combos. But the actual act of just like, I want to jump in the air and then do this jumping attack, it doesn't feel the way that you hope it would.
Yeah.
And that's a little disappointing. It's not a game breaker by any means.
No.
I was very excited when I saw it in the previews, and I was like, oh, well, they need to work on this a little bit more if they're going to add, like aerial combat to these games.
Yeah.
The other really weird complaint that I have about it, and this is very much a me thing, but it's also a game thing.
Okay.
You know how like the Yakuza games all have like, there's those random briefcases on the ground, and there's like those shiny things on the ground that you pick up. And they can be a myriad of things. They can be healing items. They can be, silver plates to
accessories.
sell.
Sometimes, yeah,
pocket tissues.
Yep.
All sorts of shit.
Mm.
There's stuff on the ground like every 3 or 4 feet.
Well, yeah.
No. Like way more than any of the other games I've ever seen.
Yeah,
it is ridiculous, and I am the type of person where if I see the shiny, I need to get the shiny.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean. That's probably why they did it like that. They're going in on the look, buried treasure.
I guess so.
That's
maybe
probably
there's an aspect of that.
I can feel that complaint though, because you're almost stopping what you're doing every 2 minutes because you're gonna pick the thing up.
Oh no, like every 5 seconds.
Yeah, 2 minutes is a bit of an exaggeration. Yeah, no, I can. I imagine it is in a matter of seconds. So yeah,
if it was every 2 minutes, no problem
that'd
whatsoever.
Be fine. Yeah, that'd be all right. Yeah.
But I'm just gonna end on 2 things. One is that they're like one of the side things that you can do is go. There's like these places where a captain you defeat has buried treasure, but it's also controlled by various pirate groups. So you have to take down the pirate groups. And the first one is part of like the main scenario. So you have to go do it. And then the rest of them are side content. And it's like a mini Yakuza dungeon where you're like moving through this area. You're fighting guys, you don't leave the combat scenario after you beat guys because it's a continuing thing, right? You've seen it in tons of these games. Once I got the treasure for the first one of these, you get attacked by a bear.
Okay.
And it's a bear in Hawaii. And everybody is like shocked that there's a bear. And it does the whole like Yakuza boss thing where it like stops the screen and it where they show the name of the character. And all it says is a bear. And I lost my goddamn mind.
That's good. Yeah. That's good.
I've laughed out loud so hard in just like the first 2.5 hours of this game. And the ending of the first chapter, I'm not going to say anything about it. All I will say is it's one of my favorite things that I've seen in this entire franchise.
Wow, okay.
Because it's so fucking stupid.
That's fantastic.
And it's really well done. And I guess the last thing that I'll say is I am playing it in English, and I actually kind of recommend it in English. I think Matthew Mercer does a really excellent job as Majima, because in the last game there wasn't really enough Majima in there to for me to really.
It was like one scene,
more than that, but there wasn't enough.
More than one?
Well, yeah, because you meet them at their shack, and then they come back, like toward
Oh
towards
yeah,
the
yeah.
end.
I forgot about that. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
but pretty brief.
But it's pretty brief, and he's also not being like very Majima. And here, obviously, with the amnesia, he's not being super Majima yet. But Mercer does like a really excellent English approximation of Majima's like laugh.
Yeah.
And it's kind of this thing, and I think it really plays well into the setting of this game because he's not quite himself right now.
Right.
But aspects of the Majima that we know come through sometimes.
Right.
And I love the Japanese voice actor for Majima. Don't get me wrong, he's a legend.
Yeah.
But I kind of feel that if I was playing this game in Japanese, he would be just 100% Majima.
It's possible. Yeah.
We're here. It's like a more subtle version of him, and I'm expecting that he's going to be like more and more of the character we expect as the game goes on. Play around with it. If you're playing the game, you might want to switch back and forth for a couple chapters.
Yeah.
But so far, I'm really enjoying Mercer's performance as Majima, and and part of me is also I'm trying to be consistent. If they're going to go ahead and make them all in English from this point on, then I want to go ahead and get used to all the characters speaking in English.
That's fair. Yeah, I totally get that. I've kind of been on that train for a while now, so I get it.
Yeah. But that's all I've got about it so far. I haven't had a chance to play much at all.
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah.
All
Justin,
right.
what have you been getting up to?
Not shit, man. We can just move right along. That's just been mod and Skyrim. I told you.
Okay.
I told you. Yeah,
I thought you were joking.
No, I was not joking, Julian. That's it. That's all I've been doing.
Okay.
So yeah, we'll just move right on along. Actually, I did do something before the start of this podcast because John Gholson's here, and I have to switch off of buying fucking 13 or 10 books off of fucking Amazon for a lot of money. And this is the segment. John,
yes, that's me.
It is your first time on this show.
Yes.
And so, unfortunately, or fortunately, it is time to subject you to the 5 questions from me. I don't remember what I called this segment, but I'd cue it up like this.
Tell us how you do.
It's David Lee Roth.
The great David Lee Roth.
All right. I don't know about great, but he's there. All right. Question number 1.
Yes.
John Gholson.
Yes.
In the
Shoot.
song,
Go.
Mr.
Give it to me.
Okay.
I'm ready.
In the song, Mr. Roboto.
Yes.
By Styx.
Yes.
Who was Kilroy?
Who was Kilroy?
Yeah.
Are you basing this off the music video?
Off the song. I've never seen the music video. I'll be honest.
Okay, because I don't know that the context for who Kilroy is in the song, but
I don't either.
But in the music video, it's intimated that he is a giant, possibly robotic, corporate overlord.
Okay. All right. Okay, that would make sense.
I always thought Kilroy was supposed to be the singer.
Well, no. Well, see, in the song, okay, if you're listening to the song out of context from the album, right? And here's what I expected the answer to be. I expected the answer to be, well, Mr. Roboto was Kilroy. Yeah, that's the twist of the song.
I think it. But, I mean, as I remember, it's like, you caught me on the spot because, it's been a few years since I've seen the music video, and I had to run through. The time has come again. Secret, secret. I got a secret. I am the modern man. Secret, secret. I got a secret.
Parts made in Japan.
Secret, secret. I got a secret. I am the modern man. Dun, 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 dun,
Yeah,
dun,
that's
dun.
it. Yeah.
I got a secret I've been hiding under my skin. He's Kilroy. The lead singer's Kilroy. Julian's right. He's got a secret he's been hiding under his skin. Dynasty. Kilroy is Dynasty Young.
Okay.
Yes.
But all right,
that's my final answer.
Yeah, I wasn't
Kilroy is
sure if
Dynasty
there
Young.
was if there was like a concept album at play that Kilroy has a greater part in.
Mr. Roboto is the robotic giant faceless overlord, but the lyrics specifically say, there's a secret I've been hiding under my skin. Dun,
Yes.
dun, 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 dun.
Okay.
Yep.
That makes sense. Okay.
Good job, Julian. Julian, question
all
number
right,
two.
Number two. What's the best name for a boat?
The Dynasty Young.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it. That's good. That's all right.
Sorry.
Oh my god, that fucking song. I like Styx. I hate that fucking song. It's so bad.
When you're with me, I'm falling, or whatever. How does that sound?
Whatever. You're close enough. Oh yeah, it's the whole thing. Okay.
Does
Now
that
this
blow out
question-
all the levels?
Oh yeah. Just fuck it. It'll be great.
The name of the
All
boat
right.
is. We'll still keep it in. We'll keep it in the Styx world, but the name of the boat is Renegade.
Ooh, now that's a good Styx song.
There we go.
That's a good
All right.
Styx song. All right. Number 3 is a question I feel both of you are well equipped to answer. This comes from outside of the podcast. This was a question posed to me from a friend of mine. And I feel like I will ask some people that I consider comics experts. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Why is Batman one word, but Man-Bat is hyphenated?
Because Batman was a name that he took for himself, and Man-Bat was a name given to the thing that was half man, half bat.
Okay. Thus the hyphen?
Yeah. Because, look at that thing is a Man-Bat. So it's not like that thing is man, but like they didn't like it's like
that makes sense.
Yeah, it's like, it's a half man, half bat. That's a Man-Bat. Batman is like, you know what? My name is gonna be Batman. Like,
is Batman, yes.
Batman. Somebody didn't look at him and go, look at that Batman. Like that would be
right.
Then you would end up, I think, with a hyphen. Now, don't allow me to explain that in context of Spider-Man being hyphenated. It's a different hyphens work different in the Marvel universe than they do in the DC universe. It's even down to the copyright because the word superheroes, I think I'll have to look it up, but I think Marvel has them butted together and DC has a hyphen in it. One of them has the trademark they both have separate trademarks on the word superheroes, and one of them is like if it's a whole word, and one of them is like if it's got a hyphen in between the two. And I can't remember. So, but if you look, it's consistent across the years that they've both existed as competitors, is if they mention their own characters as superheroes, one will use a hyphen and one won't. So there are complex rules in the metaverse about multiverse.
I do have to point out, though, that if Disney bought Batman and made a movie about him with in the next couple years, there would be a line of dialogue in the movie where someone would call Batman, and he would be like, "That's just a stupid name. Why would I call myself that?" And they'd be like, "Ha ha 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 ha," because the comic book is called Batman,
right?
That's what they do in every goddamn MCU movie.
Yeah, that's probably about right. Well, I'm glad I asked that question. That was a great answer, and I will pass that along to people who probably don't listen to this, but that's fine.
Shouts out to Lonnie.
Yeah, shout out to Lonnie. Yes, that is exactly. He just randomly in the middle of the day just comes up and asks me that exact question with no context. I love the guy. All right, number 4. How many people, John Gholson, have you taught how to Dougie?
Oh, 0.
Oh, okay. Well, fair.
Yeah, sorry.
Question number 5. How have trapezoids made your life better or worse? It's a tough question. That's why we save it for the end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the muscle that's right here.
What? Well, no, just it's a shape. It's
an alien race from Star Trek: The Next Generation.
It might as
The
well be.
trapezoids.
Yeah.
Actually, doesn't it sound like not Star Trek, but it sounds like when TV shows do a fake Star Trek, and they always have names like,
Yes.
I'm going to Gamma 13 Belta, and I defeated the trapezoids. It's always like
Yes.
some sci-fi names that sound ridiculous. I know Grant Morrison was a
Yep.
subject of this show a few episodes ago, just a mere couple episodes ago. And his
Yeah.
Green Lantern run recently, I had that problem with it, which was like, it was really solid, but all his sci-fi stuff was very hokey, 50s, 60s, like, the names and stuff was like, I'm Feeblefort from the planet Mutugag, and it's like, okay, that's all, no, I'm not, that's not, it was like taking me out of it. Trapezoids. Back,
I would like to
I'm trying
point
to
out,
avoid your original question. Julian, go ahead.
That's fair.
Keep delaying this.
I would like to point out,
answer.
because I said that I would remember it, or I would try to remember it in the future, that Archimedes Defray in our Discord did make me aware that apparently Grant Morrison has come out as non-binary, so it would be they. But I don't follow Grant Morrison, so I don't pay attention to what's going on in their life because I can't stand their writing. I think their comics are kind of shit. So but I did remember that from the Discord. So
there you
I
go.
just wanted to point that out.
Well, appreciated.
Trapezoids.
Anyway,
Trapezoid is it's a rectangle where the perpendicular line is longer than the other one. Is that right? So
now
that
I've forgotten. I looked it up just today.
So it's a rectangle where one of the horizontal perpendiculars. Well, it doesn't have to be vertical, but two perpendicular objects have one is lengthier than the other, which puts the sides of it at angles. Let me look up a trapezoid.
It is a flat shape. Yeah, it is a flat shape with four sides, two of which are parallel.
It's exactly what I thought. The one is longer than the other. How have those affected my life?
Mm-hmm.
I have not mastered them as a comic artist, and when I'm looking at them right now, they are paramount in perspective drawing. And I am shitty at perspective drawing. My characters float in space if I can get away with it, because backgrounds.
That's fair.
The secret to everybody gives Rob Liefeld shit about not drawing feet, right? Like that's his big thing is like, oh, he doesn't draw feet, haha. A lot of comic artists don't draw feet, especially ones that don't like to do backgrounds, because feet on ground means you have to plant them into a perspective drawing.
Oh, yeah.
And so if you don't show feet, you don't have to put them into a perspective drawing. Trapezoids, as an art appreciator, have affected my life in ways that have made comics that I've read be more realistic and art I've enjoyed feel more realistic, but they have had a negative impact on my ability to draw backgrounds. So I don't know if that answers your question. It may have been more. It probably was more thorough than you wanted for essentially that question.
It was great. It's both positive and negative.
Yeah.
I'm glad I asked.
I am a
question.
trapezoid appreciator. I am not a trapezoid master.
There you go.
Yeah, that I think that was a short-lived WCW gimmick in like 1994.
The trapezoid master?
Was the trapezoid master. Yeah.
Was he I don't know why in my
He
head
was with
it's
Kevin
immediately
Sullivan.
like, yeah, so it's funny, your brain went like somebody with Kevin Sullivan, and my brain went immediately to somebody, instead of being like a stereotypical like screaming wrestler, my brain went to almost like a Jake the Snake guy. Like the trapezoid guy is like, the trapezoid master is like, yeah, he has like a little rumbling voice.
It was Barry Windham's Unknown Run.
Yeah. We've talked a lot today about the squared circle, but the one thing we haven't talked about is the trapezoid. Like that kind of thing where it's like,
Oh yeah. All right. Well, now there's nothing left to do. Congratulations, John Gholson. You've made it through. I'm going to hit a button. It's going to be a random David Lee Roth quote. Might be out of context.
Woo-wee, you'll get some leg tonight for sure.
It's that one, apparently. I didn't
that
know
was
which
Rob's
one it was
favorite
gonna
of
be.
those.
Yeah, it was good. It was a good one. So congratulations.
Thank you. I feel like I earned it.
You're welcome. You did.
I will say though, to kind of just pull on the background artist thread thing, that is one of the big things that I noticed in my X-Men omnibus reading, is once like Mark Silvestri came in, because he's kind of the first of like what I know as like the 90s comic book artists that were big. I mean, he was one of the Image founders, right? So he's like the first one to show up in Uncanny X-Men, where I'm like, oh shit, it's Silvestri. And it's like almost immediately there's like no backgrounds. Sometimes he does do the backgrounds, but for the most part it's just like hunky characters and curvy ladies, like just talking to each other on a blank panel with like maybe there's some smoke in the background or something, but like nothing really going on. And it's funny because I had read John Byrne's She-Hulk run, where it's like he's there at the beginning of the book and then he goes away for a while and then he comes back, and when he comes back to the book, it's like after Liefeld has kind of risen to power and stuff like that, and almost every issue is him just like ripping the shit out of like Liefeld and Jim Lee and Silvestri and stuff like that, and just like these really harsh like criticisms of like what they do, but it's like, oh no, I see it now.
Yeah. It's
like, yeah, you were kind of right to be annoyed by this in the moment. Right. Like for me as a teenager, I was like, those were some really big boobs.
Right.
Like, I really liked and like, and then also like, like, man, Jim Lee really draws like a muscular dude, like really awesome. Like that guy looks so powerful. But like, there wasn't a lot else going on, like especially when you're comparing like just the panel to panel storytelling of like John Byrne to like anybody else from the 90s. It's like kind of night and day. But but they were what was hot, right? Like it was hot enough to go start their own company.
Indeed.
Yes.
Well, we did that.
We did do that.
And now, Video Game Masterpiece Theater, with your host, Thaddeus Wimpleshire. Good evening. I am Thaddeus Wimpleshire. What does dedication mean to you? Is it hustle, loyalty, respect? Or is it something far deeper than that? For Die Hardman, dedication is an unwavering bond between himself, his country, and the people he loves. In this heart-wrenching scene from 2019's Death Stranding, we see a grief-stricken man pleading for redemption from a stoic Sam Porter Bridges. Playing the pivotal role of Die Hardman is Anthony. Sam Porter Bridges is played by Julian Titus. Thrill to the tear-jerking performances that could only be done justice by these two titans of the stage.
Sam, I don't expect you to forgive me, but would you hear me out? I killed Captain Clifford Unger. I would tell you I did it for America, for love of country, but I didn't. I did it for her, because I loved her with all my heart. She was everything to me, everything. Now, I'm not trying to make excuses. I just want you to know that not a day's gone by when I haven't thought about it. Time didn't help, or the mask. Please let me finish. He, the captain, saved my life. You know why they call me Die Hardman? Because he wouldn't let me die. He brought my sorry ass home every time, and I loved him as much as I loved her. And when he stared me down, that ghost, I knew he was here to kill me, to make it right. And why shouldn't he? Why didn't he? He couldn't save his kid, his BB, and that's what brought him back. I guess when he saw I was trying to do my part for America, he remembered who he was, and he forgave me. God, but I don't deserve it. God damn it. There is no atoning for what I've done. Damn. God. Crying. But maybe this is the next best thing. Maybe he brought me back from the breach for a reason. One last time, he wanted me to do this, to keep on being die-hard men.
No, he didn't. No one wants a president who acts like they're immortal. If you're not scared of death, how can you value life? And life's pretty fucking fragile right now. And yeah, the old ways die hard, but that's what's gonna have to happen if we're gonna come together and build a better America. That gun won't help you here. That's her words, not mine.
Thank you, Sam.
This has been another installment of Video Game Masterpiece Theater with your host, Thaddeus Whippleshire.
I guess before we do comments, questions, concerns, I did want to kind of, I don't know, talk a little bit about this, kind of maybe rant a little bit, because it was like a news story that happened like just this week, I think. So, I don't know. It's been a long feeling week. I don't know when this got. I know it was. Yeah.
I can't remember what day it was that this dropped either.
Yeah, it was this week though.
It was
week,
like 100%. Yeah.
Yeah,
you were the first person I thought of, Julian. As soon as I was like, oh, Julian's gonna be pissed, and I was also the other person that I thought of. Yes, me, because I was like, wow, I fucking botched that one. I was all like, oh no, I'm sure that game will come out. No worries.
Yeah. So WB Games, continuing the overall downfall of WB as a just media property as a whole, closed a bunch of studios this week. And, it's bad for all of them, but the one I want to focus on is Monolith, who was an even more prodigious developer than I realized, right? I remember them for Condemned and Fear. Even though I didn't play Fear, I just remember them making Fear.
Fear was such a big deal when it came out, because I remember there was so much ink spilled about the audio, where they had gone out in the field and recorded each individual weapon type to get the actual sounds of each individual weapon that was in Fear, and that was like a big deal when Fear came out. Sorry, not to interrupt, but I was thinking about Fear just the other day, and it may have been, maybe I saw that article fly by, and I went, oh yeah, that game. I remember that game being a big deal because of the audio. Anyways, sorry. Continue. Sorry.
I remember.
No, yeah.
I remember Fear's big deal was like the AI thing, wasn't it? Like how like intelligent the AI was, and it was spooky. Or am I thinking of a different game?
Well, I mean, there were a few things, and I think that was kind of the thing about...
It was a big deal anyway, I do know that.
You start to look at what Monolith did, and a lot of their games had like at least one like really experimental kind of out there concept but they did it really, really well. Yeah. Right? So I think Fear, part of it was like, that blending of a first-person shooter with horror. Right. Right? And some of the AI in there. And then you had like No One Lives Forever, which was kind of, pseudo immersive sim when that was still kind of in its infancy, but more of a like first person adventure game, but also I think a game that was really, I know people liked it at the time, but I think that like that total aesthetic, that kind of 60s mod thing, maybe I'm being a little biased here because our show is also in that aesthetic, but like I feel that would play more now than it did when it came out. Also because, now we're even further removed from the 60s than when that game came out. But then Condemned was like just unparalleled first-person melee combat. Like some of the best that's ever been done. Right. Like when I talk about wanting to feel that like crunch of like combat in first person, I'm usually thinking about Condemned, because it is some of the crunchiest melee you will ever experience. Right. Just really well done. And also just a banger of a horror game. Yeah. In its own right. It's still widely considered, like, people love that game still. Like, yeah. The mannequin part is often talked about still. Yeah, I still think about it to this day.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah. And then, of course, the big one for me is, Middle Earth Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War, which, if you take the Nemesis system out, there's still really fun open world games with like Batman combat in there and really nice traversal. I'm not the biggest Lord of the Rings fan. I like the movies, and that's kind of where my love ends. Like I didn't care for the books, and I don't really care for going deeper into the Lord of the Rings lore.
It's never been my big thing either. So yeah, I get it.
Yeah. But them, kind of fleshing out some of that older lore in this game, M-rated game, no less, like really cool. And then you put the Nemesis system in there, which is to this day, to me, one of the most brilliant game mechanics, game systems driving an adventure, period. Right? I still think about Zogdush Ghoul Lover from Shadow of War. Or Shadow of Mordor, like my nemesis from that first game.
Yeah.
Because we went to fucking war in that game, man. Like, he just would not stay down.
Yeah.
Yeah, and just a brilliant designed thing that obviously WB thought was brilliant enough to patent.
Yes.
Which means we're never getting that shit again.
Probably not. Now, it should be noted that I think it was Jason Schreier. He came out on an interview. I don't remember exactly what outlet it was, but he said something along the lines of like the story of that studio was they did the second one of those,
Shadow of War.
Apparently, they went and pitched like a brand new IP, which was immediately turned down. So because WB wanted to focus on their big shit that they've named in their excuse for why this all happened, right? Which then led to most of the main people at Monolith leaving.
Yes, and I was not aware of that. Well, actually, I think this just came out with this whole thing.
It did.
Yeah.
So a lot of those guys quit. And basically, I'm not sure where they're at right now. They're a little either scattered or mostly at one spot. I can't remember.
So apparently, a lot of them left to go to EA, and they started a new studio.
Yeah.
And the word is they're working on the Black Panther game.
That's
and I was
right.
like, right. And I was like, wait, but that's more of a Captain America game. And then I forgot that there's also a Black Panther game that is separate from the World War II era Captain America and Black Panther game.
Yes.
And there's also that Iron Man game that's like supposed to be in the works, and a Wolverine game that's supposed to be in the works. It's like none of this stuff, like, it's like we know that they're supposed to be in the pipeline, but like that's all we've seen.
I know they showed like a preview for the Black Panther game, like a small little teaser thing, if I remember correctly.
There was a teaser for the Black Panther one, but it didn't show anything other than a logo.
They didn't show anything. No, it was like a logo and maybe like he showed up. I can't remember, and that was about it. It was nothing. But
they've shown more of the World War II one, because when Unreal there was like an Unreal Summit, and they showed off like it was just a cinematic, and also like showing like them lighting one of the scenes in Unreal Engine 5.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But that's about it.
But yeah,
actually,
go ahead. I was just gonna say, but yeah, they ended up there.
They ended up there, yeah. And I want to put a pin in that for a little bit later. But but yeah, so continuing the Monolith thing, yeah. So apparently, most of the people that we think of that we associate with all those games, and especially those Mordor games, were gone.
Yeah.
And when they started on the Wonder Woman game, like apparently there was like some debate internally about whether they wanted to use Monolith's original engine they'd been using, or switch to Unreal.
Yeah,
and they decided to stick to their engine. But the problem is that everybody who knew how to use that engine was
gone. Yeah. Oh boy. Yep.
And apparently they weren't even sure if they wanted to use the Nemesis system like in this Wonder Woman game, and it's like, that is one of the coolest things that's ever been put into a video game. Why would you not want to try to shoehorn that into every project? If I remember right,
reading it, they decided not to use it.
Well, so they were going to. So first they weren't sure if they wanted to.
Yeah.
Then they tried to get it to work, and they couldn't get it to work, so they took it out.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, because that was actually revealed like about last month when some other WB shit came out.
Okay,
and I think that's when we were like, well, but maybe it'll still come out, but it's not going to be as cool.
Yeah,
I know Mike Fallick was curious about like because I had posted about imagine coming up with like one of the coolest mechanics in like recent video game history.
Yeah.
And then not doing anything with it and also putting a patent on it so nobody else can like iterate on it.
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, well, what's your problem with the patents? And I was like I know patent law, but like from everything that I've understood from reporting on this stuff is that, basically like if you try to, emulate any or iterate on any bit of like the Nemesis system, WB could at least sue you over it. And maybe they win, maybe they don't, but nobody wants to take that chance.
Right.
And apparently the patent doesn't run out until 2036.
Yeah.
And I was thinking about this today. I was like, I bet the reason that they closed this studio was because they're hoping that somebody tries to take a swing at making the Nemesis system and then they sue their asses into oblivion and make some quick cash.
Yeah.
Because
possible.
That's the only reason I can think of that you would shutter one of your strongest teams.
It's Zaslav, right? Is it all owned by David Zaslav, who went in and when Discovery bought Warner, went in with a razor blade and like, I mean, everybody knows about the canceled Batgirl movie and like the Wile E. Coyote movie that was done and finished and screened well that he was just never going to release. Like, it may just be part of that, right? Like, is it? I mean, as trickle down. Like, if the tippy top guy is like slash and burn to everything within the company, like it may have just been a matter of time.
I mean, there might be an element of that, but one of the things that I learned today was that it's actually more from like on the game side, there was another asshat that was in the driver's seat for the last 10 years that was, kind of like driving a lot of these dumb decisions. Like, a lot, because like my memory was that Shadow of War reviewed well and it sold decently, but they had shoehorned a lot of like live service shit in there that didn't need to be there.
People were really pissed about the microtransactions.
Yes.
Yeah, they were really pissed about it, especially because it made the games, at the end of the game especially, really grindy unless you had gotten some of them or something like that. I don't remember the exact specifics, but people were pissed about it. That was a big thing with that game.
I was ultimately fine with it, but I also didn't get the true ending because I was like, I got to a certain point where I was like, I've seen enough. Like, I don't, I got an ending. I just don't feel like grinding to get like the other ending.
Mm-hmm.
And then eventually they did take it out, but somehow like it not selling as well as, Mordor because of that shit somehow reflected poorly on Monolith instead of like the suits that decided they wanted to shoehorn this shit in.
Right.
And so the interesting thing is that there's a new guy that's in charge of the games division at WB. And like his thing, like his statement was like, well, we've got to make these hard calls in order to like get ourselves back to profitability. And one of the things, like his big thing was like, we've got to come up with a way to have people want to engage with something like Hogwarts Legacy but play it, come back to it every day and have a live service that people want to play day in and day out.
Yeah.
And it's like, you fucking moron. Let's take a look at the last 10 years of your company. What are the games that did really well? And it's like, Rocksteady Batman games.
Mm-hmm.
It's Shadow of Mordor. Less so Shadow of War because you tried this shit in there. What's your best-selling thing ever? It's Hogwarts Legacy that sold 24 million copies that has none of that shit in there.
Yeah.
But no, and also your biggest failures, like, are a game that was going to be live service but had that stuff ripped out at the last minute.
Yeah.
Gotham Knights. And then Suicide Squad, which had all that stuff in there.
Yeah.
How do you think that the correct path is to lean further into that shit and not the stuff that actually made the fucking money? And the answer is, but it didn't make all the money.
It didn't make all of it, Julian. The line eventually plateaued and then moved down. Line need to keep going up. So,
and dude, something has to change. So I heard something this week on a podcast that shook me to my core, which is that there's industry scuttlebutt that says, like, there's like word within Rockstar that if GTA 6 doesn't sell as well as GTA 5, it will be considered a failure. If GTA 6 does not sell as well as the best-selling game of all time,
yeah,
it's a failure.
Yeah.
And there's word that it cost like $2 billion or something in
wouldn't
cost.
doubt
And
it.
it's like, y'all fucked up somewhere.
Yeah.
Well, and also, but you paid for it with like fucking, shark bucks money.
Yeah, pretty much.
So it doesn't even really matter. But also, how did you spend that much money on game development? And I think that's the problem. I wanted to come back to that with like all these nebulous superhero games that have been announced and just are like nothing to show for it. Something's got to change in this industry where I think, and I don't know if it has to be on the tools side, but something has to give where it's easier and faster for people to iterate and develop games. How many years have I been like hoping that IO's James Bond game shows up at the Game Awards because I really want to see it?
Yeah.
It's been like 4 years now.
Yeah.
And like still nothing. And like the Wolverine teaser trailer was like 3 years ago. Nothing on that.
Well, they had that leak, but
Well, yeah, we're not going to count that.
but still.
Yeah. The like Iron Man was only announced. That's just got a logo.
Right.
That Black Panther game just has a logo. And that's just superhero stuff. I'm not even talking about like other stuff that like we know was announced and we had a teaser and then it's like, but where are you?
Yeah.
What, yeah, I don't know. It's extremely frustrating. I can only imagine for the people working on these games.
Yeah.
Like,
I wonder if it's a good idea to almost do like when Bethesda did the Fallout 4 thing, when they announced it and then it was like it's coming out in 6 months and people were like, holy shit, that's great. Like there has to be something like it feels like they're announcing a lot of stuff very early these days. Like CD Projekt Red is fucking notorious for this shit. They just shown that whole trailer for the fucking next Witcher game. That shit's probably not going to come out for another fucking 4 or 5 years.
That's next gen.
Yeah, exactly. Cyberpunk was the same way. They showed like that one trailer with the girl in the dress or whatever, and they're getting shot. It was like stop motion or something. It was weird if anybody remembers that.
I do. Yeah.
Yeah, and then like that was like I think The Witcher 3 had like just come out or something like that.
Yeah, I think it was like 3 or 4 years before we even got like another trailer. After that.
Yeah, that's what I mean. And then all of a sudden it showed back up because people were like, "Man, it would be cool to see something else about that." And maybe that's the strategy, or that people are trying to do is like the Cyberpunk strategy is like announce it super early and then disappear for a while and let everybody forget about it.
But see, I think that's the wrong way to go about it.
Agree.
And I do feel that like this year in particular, it seems like it's pivoting the other way. And Nintendo's been good about this for the last couple years.
Yes, they have.
Where they'll announce something and then it's out in like 3 to 5 months.
See what I mean with that's yeah.
So like a lot of the stuff that was shown at the Sony State of Play, most of it is coming out this year. And like the big like Leslie Benzies game, the open world like military shooter guy, Mind's Eye, like shown for the first time at that State of Play coming out in May.
Right.
That's awesome. And I'll kind of parrot Vinny Caravella where it's like I'm kind of more excited about that than GTA 6 because like I don't know what to expect from this one. I know what to expect from GTA 6.
Right.
Something's got to give, man. I do think there's a lot of really positive stuff in the industry. Like I said earlier, like there's a lot of games that were like unveiled this week where I was like, that's a really cool looking game that I'll probably wait for reviews, but like it's on my radar.
I do think there is like starting to become like more of a parody between like, hey, like, I mean, I can't remember what the hell that game is called. It was a first person shooter. I think it was made by one dude. And it came out for consoles too, and it was like fuck, I'm never gonna remember it. Guy in Korea though, but it was one dude who made this like whole game.
I know the one you mean. I can't think of the name.
I can't either.
It's like Phantom something.
Yeah, something like that. I never played it. It looked neat, I guess, but like it wasn't my thing. But like it was a good looking game at the very least. So we're starting to get to this point where maybe we're starting to like kind of, you know, even the playing field a little bit between like your AAA stuff and that.
Yeah, like
it's
everything,
possible.
every demonstration that I've seen of like Unreal Engine 5, you know, to a layperson like me, seems to be moving in the right direction where it's like lowering that barrier to entry for stuff, or just like streamlining certain processes to make it to where it's like, I want to throw this in here real quick. Can I do that? Boom, yeah, there it is, and it's updated, and now I can actually drop right into the game and test it and see if it works. Right? It seems like things are going that way, and there's also like forget what they called it, but whatever they're doing for like the facial scans and stuff like that. Is it human or something like that?
I honest to God, I don't remember.
Yeah, like everything they do to like you can like model and like generate like really interesting like NPCs and stuff like that. Even divorced from actually doing like facial scans and stuff. There's like a lot of stuff in there that seems like it would cut down on a lot of time and a lot of things that used to take like days or weeks that now take like minutes or hours. Yeah. And that seems like a really good thing, but you know, I don't know. Something is out of whack. And I don't know. It has to equalize.
A lot of it feels like it's in the AAA space in a lot of that stuff where it's a lot of, you know, a corporate man going, this is what we need to do to make the money.
It's so weird though that like it's so money motivated right now, and yet right now in games, I've never seen companies literally willing to throw out baby with the bathwater. I mean, I think it's funny, like a game like, what was it, Anthem? Was that the EA game?
Yeah.
Where it's
BioWare.
like
BioWare,
yeah, or like Avengers, where it's like those were almost like test runs for, can we release a multi-million-dollar game and then throw it away? And it's like now it seems now it's like it's a common business practice, and it's like I don't like what like. If your concern is all bottom line based, how are you also doing this other thing where you're like throw it I don't know enough about the business of games, but I think it's crazy that Julian and I have talked about this before, that like Game Pass stuff, a situation where Microsoft buys a bunch of companies, releases AAA titles day of for Game Pass subscribers, which have plateaued. They're not gaining new subscribers, but they are selling less games because nobody's buying them because they get them for free on day one, and then having to let people go from the companies that they bought in the first place because they're the ones giving the game away for free. Or like, again, spending the money to make huge licensed games, like this big these brawlers recently that have, is it the Warner Brothers, whatever that thing is that has all the Warner Brothers characters in it? Or
multiverses.
Yeah, and it's like all these things where it's just like spend all this money to cultivate like multi-million-dollar resources to cultivate an IP, and then look at it and go, nah. It's just I don't know what's going. The gaming industry is baffling right now. I cannot make sense.
It really is.
What
and a lot, like I said, a lot of it feels like it's on that side of the fence, you know, because I mean, you look at like Baldur's Gate 3, where they were just like, no, we're just going to make the game we want. We don't really give a shit.
Well, they had the luxury to do so because they didn't have to answer to anybody.
Right. Yeah. That not everybody has that in the industry.
Yeah.
It doesn't have that little hand going, no. You got to add this. Do it. It's mandatory.
But even just like overall strategy, right? So I'll go back to the WB thing, where it's like, okay, because they said like, okay, our core focus is DC, Harry Potter, Game of Thrones.
Yes.
And I forget what the other one was.
Mortal Kombat.
Okay, yes, thank you.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, but you're Warner Brothers.
Mm-hmm.
You literally own some of the most recognizable shit in the world. And like, there's so many things that you could do. Like, just off the top of my head when I was driving home, because I got my car back today. Yay.
Congratulations.
So I was driving home today and I was like, you could do like a really cool, like very modest Scooby-Doo investigation type game that's like part the Somnium Files, part, Ace Attorney, part just like kind of wacky hijinks. And I bet that would play. Like, if you got the right developer, that could be really cool. There's so many things that you could do. But also, okay, let's say Wonder Woman was not coming together, right? Like, everybody who tried it, they're like, this is not working. We need to do something else. But we want to make good games. Well, again, let's set aside the fact that this asshat wants to do live service and doesn't see the value of the stuff that's actually been making the money.
That seems like the problem right there. But continue.
That is the problem.
Yeah, I mean, it is. Yes.
Okay. Let's say that you do want to make a live service game.
Okay.
Why the fuck would you get rid of one of your most talented studios to do that? Where's the equation where it's like, we need to make successful games. Hey, company that makes really successful games, fuck off. Now, maybe there is an aspect of like, well, but if most of the brain brain trust is gone.
I was just gonna say, and they're the only ones that know this engine that they developed, and now nobody can really actually develop a game. And
I guess it is kind of a BioWare situation where it's like, is it really the company that you know anymore?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah, it really is. And on less of a scale with slightly less of a name than a BioWare too.
So quite a bit less.
Quite a bit. Yeah.
Because also there's another Monolith that's more famous than them.
Right.
The ones that make the Xenosaga games.
Right.
Or sorry, not Xenosaga, Xenoblade Chronicles.
They're the same difference.
Yeah. Yeah, man. It's. I just feel like a lot of stuff is like it going in the wrong direction, and it always comes down to these suits and because they're chasing shit that's not going to be there when they finally ship the game that they're chasing.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said before, I think at the end of last season, it's like you kind of have to just, instead of trying to chase a trend, try to make the next trend.
Yeah, and
maybe you don't do it, but maybe you do.
Yeah,
right. But you can't, and there's always going to be certain things that you can like, oh, that was a cool idea.
Yeah.
Let's iterate on that and try to do something like a different spin on it. But it can't be like the focal point of the project, right? Because you just can't turn a game around fast enough to capitalize on a trend anymore. It's just not going to happen.
No, absolutely not. But they're going to try.
Yeah.
And that's what sucks. They're going to keep trying. And
you know what? Maybe I do belong where I work. Maybe I'm gonna be fine.
You're gonna be all right, Julian. I'm like, dude, it's your first week. You're gonna be all right.
Ah, shit.
Yeah.
Well, that's all I've got for that.
All right. Well, I felt like I was queuing up a bit there, but no,
okay.
I wasn't.
I was like, oh, you got something? All right.
No, is it okay if we take a break for a minute or two? Or
oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, okay.
All right, that's what I was going to ask. All right, great.
BRB. And we're back. Before we get out of here, I thought we would answer some comments, questions, and concerns, or CQC. As always, there are many ways that you can get a hold of us. You can email us. The email address is thestageselectpod@gmail.com. You can comment on Patreon if you're a Patreon member, and you don't have to be a paid member. You can just have a Patreon account and go to the episode posts there, and you can comment there. You can also comment on the YouTube channel. It was a little weird this week. Like the most recent episode went up like a day late on YouTube, and I don't know why. I was starting to freak out a little bit, and then it was there, and I was like, okay, cool. Because like, yeah, it's just, I'm assuming it was something on YouTube's end
Probably
that delayed it. But I was like, I don't even know how to address this if something's going. Like, do I ask like Captivate our host, or do I go to YouTube? Like, thankfully I didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
But also, so you can join our Discord, and you can ask things in the comments, questions, and concerns channel. Our Discord is very fun and has a lot of very fun and chill people in there.
It's a good place.
You should join the Discord. John Gholson has been very active there lately. It's
Awesome.
nice.
Because I killed
Yes.
my social media.
There you go.
You'll have that.
So I'm on Discord more often because I got no meta. I haven't been on X in a while, but I cut meta out of my life at the beginning of the year.
That makes sense.
I just call it Facebook. Fuck
Well-
them. I'm not abiding by their new name.
Yeah, well, my deal is it
just like
included Instagram,
Twitter.
and that was the sacrifice.
Right.
Like Facebook wasn't as big of a sacrifice for me, but Instagram felt like, man, I use and enjoy Instagram, and
Right.
especially as like an artist and stuff, like sharing my artwork on it and stuff like that. And,
Right.
I felt the sting of that one more than Facebook. Facebook, the problem with Facebook's deal is like mostly family, and not having Facebook actually forces me to engage with family more than it would have if I just kept it. I can passively engage. Now I have to like actively engage, which should be seen by my family as a good thing, even though my family was like, why did you delete your Facebook? And it's like, well, now if I want to know what you're doing, I have to call you like that. You should look at that as good.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, Instagram was one where I was like, I liked posting there. I liked seeing posts there. And yeah, I just, Zuck had a week where he was just like, had a new hit every week. And the final straw for me was him going, anybody that quits the platform right now is just being a white knight. And I was like, okay, cool. I'll watch this. I'll be a white knight watch, and deleted all my Facebook and Instagram. So, and I know, he'll never know, but like I was talking to my goddaughter about social media, and like, I'm aware that you're the product. Like that's part of it. I asked her, I was like, think about the sites that you use. I was like, are you charged money to use Instagram? She said, no. I said, are you charged money to use, name some different things she uses. She's like, no. And I said, you know why you're not charged money? And she was like, why? I said, because you are the product. And I said, now that's fine. I understand I am the product. Like, I understand that they have my data and they want to make sure that they can sell me to advertisers and whatever. Like, I get it.
Mhm.
That's the price you pay. But ultimately, I also have the right to take myself off your shelf as your product. Like,
Yeah.
I am no longer supplying John Gholson to the Meta store. Like, you don't get to sell me anymore. You are all out of
Right.
John Gholson when people come calling. Yeah, and it's like, yeah. So I'm on Discord more. I didn't mean to,
That makes sense.
go
Yeah.
on a
Long story
tangent.
short. Yeah.
I don't want to get into the details of why, but
People know why. It's fucking gross out there.
Yeah.
We start off with 60X Self, who says, and now handhelds.
Oh boy.
Which is the continuation of their question, which is favorite game on the system. Don't think about it too hard. Go. So with that in mind, I'm going to say, and these are the ones that I owned, because like I didn't own all of them. I'm going to say original Game Boy, Link's Awakening, Game Boy Advance. Fuck. Oh, yeah. See, I can't. I'm trying. Oh, no. What am I talking about? Castlevania Aria of Sorrow.
Yeah, there you go.
Neo Geo Pocket Color. Probably Card Fighters Clash. I was going to say Match of the Millennium, but I think it's probably Card Fighters Clash over that one.
Okay.
DS is going to be actually Castlevania Dawn of Sorrow. And then 3DS, Fire Emblem Awakening. Trying to think of what other handhelds I own. PSP. Trying to think of what I finished on PSP.
Yeah, that's always a good question. Yeah.
I own a lot of PSP games, but I didn't actually finish a lot of stuff on PSP. I'm going to say Tactics War of the Lions.
Yeah.
And then Vita. I didn't play it there, but I'm going to say Danganronpa.
Sure. Yeah, that checks out. Oh.
And I think that might be all of my handhelds, unless you count the Switch, which I guess Switch for me, it's did I say? Fire Emblem.
Yeah, we said
Fire
that
Emblem
last
Three
week.
Houses.
Yeah, we did that one last week.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
All right.
it's both.
Yeah, sure.
Piece of shit.
All right, Game Boy. As dumb as this one's gonna sound, I think it's Mickey's Dangerous Chase. A game that's more I was randomly obsessed with. I don't know why.
I can see a very young Justin with full ass beard enjoying Mickey's Dangerous Chase.
It wasn't even really like, I actually, as I got older, was more interested in it because it was like hard, but like interesting, because it was all like block based. Like you had to grab the blocks, and like there was some like neat mechanics in it that I always remember of like, no, I have to grab this at just the right time and be jumping. It was a whole thing. I haven't played it in years and years, but that's one that always comes to mind for the original Game Boy. Let's see, Game Boy Advance. I don't remember. I think it might have just been Fire Pro Wrestling. I can't remember it might have been Fire Pro Wrestling Advance.
It's just Fire Pro Wrestling.
Was it just Fire Pro Wrestling on that one? Okay, It was that one. 100%. I played the shit out of that version of that game. I had another friend that also played it, and that was one where we would actually link up and play each other. Nice. And he would beat the shit out of me in it a lot of the time with his character Yugo Sato Broken Glass. And I'm pronouncing it wrong. They would pronounce it as Yugo Sato Broken Glass, and I was like, all right, this is that I hated that character because they were bullshit. Anyway, I also created a character while under the influence of LSD, named Godivore, who was a bear. He was God, but also a bear. Don't ask. I don't really know what I was doing then. Anyway, let's see what else. Nintendo DS. I'm trying to think on that one. Let me come back to it. PSP was probably, of all, I liked War of the Lions a lot. I don't think I ever actually finished that version of the game though. But the game I played the shit out of, and this is another one, I don't remember the exact name of it, but there was a Tekken game on PSP that I
think that was 5.
Was it 5? I don't know if it was numbered. I
don't think it's numbered, but I think it was based on 5.
It was based on 5. Yeah, no, it was based on one of them. But I think it had that was like the introduction of like Lily, and I want to say the other guy that was like Wei Wulong.
Wei Wulong.
Yeah, his like rival character that like I think his name's Fang or something like that. The dude with he's real muscular.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
I think it was and the Nazi looking dude. I think he was in it too, something like that. But I played the shit out of that Tekken game on breaks at work. Just dominating with Paul Phoenix, just dominating the computer because that's all I could play. But yeah, I played a lot of that game. DS. What did I really like on DS? Well, let me come back to it. I'm really having 3DS is probably as much as I think it's the Awakening is the better Fire Emblem. I will say I did like I forgot the name of it already. Fire
Fates.
Emblem. Yeah, Fates. I played a lot of Fire Emblem Fates. I played all 3 campaigns. I played.
Oh shit!
There was 2 of them, and then there was like a DLC one that combined them. And man, I loved that game. So I would definitely say that. Vita is a tough one because I'm trying to think of what I even finished on Vita.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I know I played Suikoden on it, but it's not a Vita game. That's what I bought that thing for, was to play old games on. So I'm not sure I have a real great answer for that, because as far as like Vita specific games.
I mean, you also don't have to have finished it. Like,
okay,
so,
all right.
Like, I don't think that's a stipulation.
Yeah,
it's not game of the year.
Yeah, and I would always. Yeah, I'm trying. See, that's the thing. I don't even know if I can't
Persona
remember.
4, that's kind of the game,
Sure,
right? Like,
I barely played it. We'll go with that. The game I barely played. I can't think of any off the top of my head right now. I know I played Valhalla on it, but it was after I had already beaten it on the PC. I was just like, I just want this. I just want this on here too. Let's see. Back to DS, I guess. I'm trying to think of what the fuck I even played on that. I know I had it. It might have been. No, wasn't that? Oh. I might have.
You're not as much of a portable gamer in general.
I'm not, but at the time of some of that stuff, I was. Just DS. Just DS. What should I need a good list of
Dominance
games.
and Submission?
No, probably not. Boy. No.
It was Nacho Libre.
I
Libre,
wish
Justin.
it was something.
It was Nacho Libre.
Oh, actually, no. Now that it was not.
Justin, it was Nacho
unfortunately.
Libre. That was your favorite DS game.
Okay, sure. Apparently, that was my favorite DS game. I have nothing. No, actually, I after looking at a quick list, I really did enjoy the new Super Mario Brothers game. I did play that one all the way through and had a good time playing it. Because it was kind of like a refreshing old Mario game with a good coat of paint and played well.
That's why I didn't like it, because I was like, I've done this before.
Yeah, it had been a long time for me, so I was like, oh, this is neat to have this, so I liked it.
Yeah.
I think that might be all, unless we want to go into Tiger Electronics handhelds.
Nah.
Okay, well, that's your loss. Just know.
John, how about you?
Game Boy, Tetris.
Yeah.
Hello, Tetris, guys. Tetris.
No,
Tetris. What did I own after that? I had a couple that I had for like a blip and didn't really like any of the games for it. Like I had playing a Game Gear is like hard because the screen is so blurry, and like I had a Nomad for a little while, but that's just a Genesis.
Yeah.
I can name a Game Gear game for myself. It would be Columns.
Columns, yeah.
Yeah.
Card Fighter Clash. I had a Neo Geo Pocket Color, so Card Fighter Clash on the Neo Geo Pocket.
I think everybody at Game Fellas had a Neo Geo Pocket Color. Like we all like got so into Neo Geo Pocket Color.
Nice.
I had forgotten. I played a ton of a game called Monster Force on Game Boy Advance that was like Zombies Ain't My Neighbors. You could actually play 2-player even by hooking 2 advances up. But I played a lot of Monster Force because I'm a big Universal Monsters nerd, and it was like, oh, a Universal Monsters game. Like you choose, Frankenstein and Mummy and Wolfman and stuff, and it played like Zombies Ate My Neighbors. So I'll say that for Advance.
Right.
No, you know what I have to say for Advance? Actually, forget that. Freaking WarioWare.
Yeah,
yeah. Sorry, WarioWare. Because we played the hell out of WarioWare. Yeah. And I think, didn't the GameCube play Advance games if you had the connector thing?
If you had.
And I remember playing WarioWare as if it was a console game, like on the couch with people and stuff like that. Like WarioWare, sorry. GBA's WarioWare.
Yep. Makes
DS
sense.
for me, can I have a tie?
Absolutely. Why not?
Phoenix Wright and not Jet Set Radio. What's the blop 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 rhythm game? But it has a name like that.
Oh, Elite Beat
Elite
Agents.
Beat Agents. Elite Beat Agents of Phoenix Wright.
Yeah.
Tie. Honorable mention, Dragon Warrior Slime, whatever the hell that game was. Slime Rancher, Slime Monster, whatever. What was the name of that game?
Slime
something. Dragon
don't
Warrior
know.
Slime something or other.
Okay.
I don't
Hold
know.
on, let me look it up.
I'll try to look for you. Hold on.
Dragon Warrior.
I know Dragon Warrior
Slime.
Monsters.
DS. Is that what it's called? No. Oh, Rocket Slime. Rocket Slime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I remember that name.
So Elite Beat and Phoenix Wright tied with a nice honorable mention for Rocket Slime because I played the hell out of that one too.
I do love me some Elite Beat Agents.
And I don't think I had another one. It feels like I did, but I don't think I had another handheld. I think I just owned I had a Game Boy Color. If we're saying Game Boy Color, which is basically a Game Boy, would be Pokemon Yellow.
I always considered Color as a continuation of the original.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think that covers everything. And then I recently got an Ambernick, what is it, like RGVX 100, whatever the hell, the like emulator one, and I found myself playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out, probably more than any other game on there. I played Mike Tyson's Punch Out a lot. Not that that's a game for that system, but just in handheld conversation.
Right.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm missing. It's going to be after this call, and I'm going to be like, "You owned a," and I'm going to go, "Oh yeah, I totally did," but I can't think of anything else.
I mean, other than like the PlayStation ones,
I
like
never
really
had
the
a
only other,
PlayStation
like
one.
I know you didn't. And I know you didn't own a Lynx,
Does-
right? Like there's,
Does the Virtual Boy count?
nah.
No, boo.
You know what I did
Anyway,
own
tell the
for a
real
little while?
boxer.
I owned one of those.
Mario Tennis.
What was the big thing with the black and white screen that could connect to the internet in the late 90s?
Gamecom?
Yeah, I owned a Gamecom.
Oh boy.
I owned a Gamecom. And I think it's because I was like, man, you could play Resident Evil on the go. How amazing would that be? Guess what? Not amazing at all, turns out. But yeah, I did own a Gamecom for a hiccup there. Just for a little brief period of time, I owned a Gamecom.
Why not?
I hope that it was a used one that came into your store and you were just like, why not?
No, it was, I think it was clearance at KB is what it came down to. I think the price had finally dropped where I was like, you know what? I can justify that. I can justify that somewhat. The screen was so bad. Like, that's the problem with the Gamecom.
Yeah.
They had the stylus. It could connect to the internet. There was so much cool about it. But if anything on the screen moved, you could not see the screen. Like, the refresh rate.
Oh, boy.
The refresh rate for the, like, black and white LCD stuff was so poor that just the littlest movement was indecipherable. You could not see what was going on, which made games absolutely impossible to play.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Next up on Discord from Daftman. Is there a game you loved back in the day, but you were afraid to revisit because you think or know it won't hold up and you don't want to tarnish your memories? One of my kids was looking through the N64 games on the Switch, and there was Jet Force Gemini, a game which perfectly fits these criteria for me. That's because it wasn't a good game to begin with.
Yeah.
Not really, because it's really easy for me to compartmentalize, it's easy for me to like remember when the game came out and kind of like look at it through that lens again and still either enjoy it for what it did at the time or remember my feelings of the game at the time while still acknowledging that like some of the stuff might not hold up as well, but that stuff doesn't necessarily bother me. It's just something that I can acknowledge, but it doesn't really detract from the game for me.
Sure. But if you had to pick one.
Asshole. Go ahead, John, because I
thought of
really
one. I thought of one immediately, which was like, I have no desire to ever play this again. I'm embarrassed at the amount of hours I put in back in the day. even thinking about it now, like if I want to know if I've grown as a person, it's how ashamed I am of playing BMX Triple X on a GameCube.
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, I put some hours into that. It was a pretty good Tony Hawk clone in regards to it played like a Tony Hawk game, and I enjoyed those games.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm looking at it right now, and I'm just like, yeah, I wish I could go back in time and be like, hey, do literally anything else with your life than play BMX
Right.
Triple X, because someday you're going to be on a podcast and they're going to ask you a game that you put a lot of hours into that you would be afraid to go back and revisit. And you're going to be ashamed and wish you could not say BMX Triple X when you know in your heart that that's the answer.
Yeah.
I guess along that tack, but I still think that I'd be able to enjoy it today. But I guess the closest thing to that for me would probably be Leisure Suit Larry Magna Cum Laude for PS2.
Sure. Yeah.
But even at the time, I could acknowledge that like that game, you know, was not a fantastic game. I just loved it. Like it made me laugh, and I thought it was really silly. And you know,
yeah, on that same tip, I put probably an embarrassingly amount of a decent amount of time into that stupid fucking Playboy the Mansion game because it was a Sims like game. So yeah, I know that doesn't hold up, but goddamn. Oh boy, at the time I was like, I don't know, I'm having an okay time doing this. I'll just sit here, fuck it.
This actually came up the other day because I was thinking about when I saw the list of games come in. Sometimes when people mention the GameCube, the game that comes immediately to mind, I'm probably the only person in the entire world where when I think GameCube, I think Future Tactics.
There it is.
Future Tactics.
I swear that you have mentioned Future Tactics every time that you have guested on one of my podcasts.
Ring the bell.
I haven't gone back to play it again because I'm afraid it might. My memories of it, I had a lot of fun playing it. I really enjoyed it. I thought it was kind of a sleeper for GameCube, and also it's probably terrible because I'm the only person in the universe that likes Future Tactics.
Yeah.
I bet I can probably find at least 5 or 6 like YouTube videos that are like this unsung like gem on the GameCube.
Sure. Yeah. I'm sure there's some. I know one.
It was like XCOM or whatever. It's a good game.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. I know the one that immediately came to mind that wasn't Playboy the Mansion was for me was Diddy Kong Racing. Admittedly, but it's probably not a bad game. But like I remember just sitting there trying to beat like 1 or 2 races. It's fucking insane. It was insanely hard as a kid. But I wonder how it would be to go back to that thing.
It's almost like the entirety of Rare's output on the Nintendo 64 was lackluster.
It wasn't super great, and they just made a kart racing game.
I said it. Oh, I said it. Yeah, you heard me.
I mean, yeah, they made what, Banjo-Kazooie? I don't know.
Banjo, Conquer.
Oh yeah,
Jet Force,
Conquer's bad for
Donkey Kong 64.
I forgot
GoldenEye, Perfect Dark.
Yeah,
I have one in the other room right now. I don't know that the last time I touched that Nintendo 64. I may need to sell it for some cash. I completely forgot I had that freaking Nintendo 64. I have a Nintendo 64 and like every wrestling game ever made, and then a couple other carts. But like I did not think about that as a means to get some cash.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing up a system I never play.
No problem. Anytime.
Yeah. Casey says, what's a game that got a giant overhaul midway through development and you wish the original idea released instead? So this is like a game where, you know, they were working on one thing and famously like pivoted or changed something and then the game came out.
Easy. I have an easy answer for
Go ahead.
Cyberpunk. The original idea of that shit sounds so fucking cool when you hear like how what they had planned and stuff like that, where like a lot of it wasn't so much focused on like the straight storyline. They wanted like a whole like different factions and like they were gonna different play styles sort of thing, and like they were gonna go really into like the like you're just a dude in this world and you got to pick a faction and a fixer and do all this stuff, and they wanted to like really go in on that, but then they said no, we should make a more of a story thing, and then they got Keanu Reeves and did all this other stuff. Like Johnny Silverhand was a much different character in the original one and stuff like that. It always sounds really fascinating, their ideas for that. So that's my easy pick on that.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, it's a fascinating article because that stuff came out around the time when the game dropped the first time, and it was a mess. And they were like, well, what happened here? And and people were going into like, here was our original idea, and it kind of went by the wayside, and all this other stuff. So, yeah.
For me, it's Resident Evil 4. I mean, obviously, Resident Evil 4, as it came out, is like a legendary game, and I think it's excellent. But I kind of liked the idea of them going more supernatural with that series,
right?
And Leon... Hookman, that stuff, and then Leon getting infected and it giving him access to like powers and shit, but you also had to manage the infection so he didn't get overtaken by it.
Right.
That sounds really cool to me.
Yeah.
And also like I don't know, the way that game was looking, like just like style wise, was like looked actually scary, where Resident Evil 4 is definitely not scary.
It would have been a fascinating pivot for that entire series to go that route too, where where like, okay, we've done what we can with zombies. Let's move to a different monster group, or, you know, supernatural horror protagonist or antagonist or whatever, and kind of move in that direction and go as far as we can with that, and then maybe keep moving on as you've run out the idea. That would have been
Village
really
seems like they're trying to do that, but I'm almost like, I haven't played it, but I can pretty much guarantee that like all of the stuff that seems supernatural is just like different infections. Like
you might,
like, okay,
crazy, Julian. I don't know where you would have gotten that idea from. That's wild.
Right. Anything come to mind with you, John? It's fine if not.
Yeah, I mean, I have a passing curiosity in Fallout Van Buren, which was the game that was scrapped to make Fallout 3. It was going to be a 2D isometric like the other Fallouts.
Oh, okay.
So I have a passing interest in that. A lot of the lore and stuff was already percolating, and so you can find whole chunks of information about what was going to happen regarding like planned characters and stories and scenarios and things like that. But I never played a 2D Fallout, so I don't. My curiosity for it is like, I could sate that gameplay curiosity by just playing a freaking old Fallout game.
Yeah.
The one that I always kind of still daydream about sometimes is, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't they say that the whole thing with the Batmobile in Arkham Knight was a test for a Superman game or a Flash game? There was some kind of, where they were like, how would it work to do missions on the ground? And I think it started as like they were working on ideas. I want to say it was Superman. Like they're working on ideas for a Superman game, and then they were like, oh, what would that look like? Like the practical application of that should be, we'll make it Batman's car. But I think I remember reading with a developer, like an interview with a developer, talking about the idea of moving around the city was not originally, that concept was not originally created for Batman in that game. That was supposed to be something else. Does that seem familiar at all?
Not to me, but like I feel like that would translate more to a Flash game than a Superman game.
I do too, but I think that's wrong. I want to say it was Superman that they were playing around with, but I just don't remember. And so because I have no details, I guess I'll say Van Buren. There's probably something else over the years that like would come up that I would be like, oh yeah, that thing that I read about and forgot. I mean, there's that Star Wars game was pretty high profile a couple years ago.
But that was just a canceled game. That wasn't like something that got pivoted.
No, you're talking about something that changed in development. Like it was
it came
made
out
and became something else. So far those two examples were things that literally pivoted mid-development.
I just have to say, to going back to the WB thing, because like they did say that Rocksteady is in early development on a new Batman game.
Of course, sir.
Which I get it, like it's safe, but like we now have the technology to do Superman right.
Yeah,
and it's like, God damn it, Like
okay. That's another thing. I guarantee they're gonna wait until and see how that next Superman movie does, and if it's a hit, then they'll make a video game. But if it flops, then they're like, no, don't worry about that. Yeah.
Only comic book fans seem to care about Superman. Like,
yeah,
you know, he has lost his like mass appeal in a really weird way, but. You know, maybe you should have gotten a better person to do his last couple movies. That's just my thought.
Well,
someone that understood the character.
Yeah. Was it Snyder that did the last ones or whatever? Or who did? Okay.
Yeah. Man of Steel and BVS.
There was a Reddit thread about people who are good people, but you hate everything that they do, and Zack Snyder was like number one. it was like
I like 300.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I like Sucker Punch. God damn it.
Yeah, Sucker Punch not very good. But yeah, that was I found that one entertaining.
Yeah. Next up, we have Xavier Krager, who says, "Justin, did you ever check out any of the Baldur's Gate 3 Magic cards?" I'm assuming that's Baldur's Gate 3.
Yeah.
I thought that set was another pretty cool set to own. Not sure how well it was received mechanically. I did pick all the party member cards so I could do a BG3 shadow box display.
I was going to say, I think there was like if I remember right, there's a really like busted ass mechanic in it. One that was like almost so, I'm not sure if it's Baldur's Gate 3 though, but I know that it was like something that was seeing like legacy play from it because it was almost okay. So there used to be this card that they put in commander sets, and I can't remember his exact name, but he was I can tell you everything he did. He was a 3-mana guy, 3/1. He had protection from other players, so anything the other player wanted to do, they couldn't do, and that thing was busted. It was meant to be fun in like. I think you had to choose what player, but when there's only one other player to choose from, you just choose them, and then now the game is they just can't do anything unless they have a board wipe. So it was like kind of busted. It was a fun commander idea. And I keep thinking because I think the Baldur's Gate 3 set might have been more commander centric. I have looked into it, but not very hard. I know on Arena you can get Asterion as your like profile guy. And I was like, oh, how did I do that? That's cool, but then I missed the boat on it. Other than that, I have not looked into it too hard. I wouldn't mind getting some of that stuff. That'd be neat. But yeah, I think. Go ahead.
How do you feel about that stuff? Like I haven't. I used to be into Magic in the 90s, and I feel like the licensed Magic stuff. I'm a big Fallout fan, obviously, but like they've got the Fallout Magic cards, and I'm just like, there's something about letting a bunch of licenses into Magic that it has made. I don't think it strengthens the brand. I think it makes the brand lesser. I kind of like the insular nature. I can picture certain things like occasionally doing a special D&D card every now and then where it's like, oh wow, like it's just that one card.
Yes.
But these like weird Lego style license sets, like I just, there's something about it. But I feel like I have no right to complain because I don't play Magic, but if I did, I think I would go gripe about it all the time.
What's funny about it, John, is that you're the person that they're aiming at with that stuff, because what they're trying to do is get people from outside to be like, ooh, that's a thing I like. I would like to get that, and get them into the game that way. People that actually play Magic on the regular fucking hate it for the most part, as far as I can tell. As soon as I seen it, like, I'm trying to think of the first one they did. It might have been that Lord of the Rings one. Now they did a D&D set that was like actually standard legal. But it was kind of loosely based on D&D. It had some Dungeons and Dragons monsters and stuff like that. I can't remember what the hell that one was called. But it was their first. It was kind of very unpopular. People did not like it, but it worked. Like for some reason that one worked. But like there's something about like Magic has its own lore, and there's kind of a certain appeal to trying to figure out what's going on by just looking at the art and reading the flavor text on cards. That's kind of always been a like little tiny appeal to the game overall to me. And when you're just like, here's popular thing that we've turned into Magic, and it's like, I don't know how I feel about that. Now, the Final Fantasy one, I'm super torn on, because I'm like, well, I really like Final Fantasy fuckers. So I want to get that. But at the same time, if they never did it, I'd be fine with that too.
I kind of wish that the branding was a little bit more like hero clicks, where it's like, yeah, you can mix them together, but the DC stuff is separate from the Marvel stuff, is separate from the fantasy stuff. And like, yeah, if you want to put Spider-Man in your HeroClix game, like you could, but it doesn't necessarily encourage that. And it doesn't feel like they're doing that. It feels like, oh, it's all one big giant pile, and you can tap your mana and play a freaking Deathclaw from Fallout, and tap it again and play Ifrit from Final Fantasy. And it's man,
I'm tapping my mana 3 times a day at least.
It's a little Lego movie to me.
Yeah, no,
Julian.
It kind of is. It kind of is. And yeah, no, it's one of those things that like when I first seen it, I was like, I don't think I need to go back to Magic. They'll always get me back, because I'll get bored and be like, I don't know what's going on over there, and then I'll get sidetracked and play it again. I always like limited. I'll just sit there, and I love drafting fucking stupid decks and trying to do anything with that stuff. I'm addicted to that shit. It's really bad when I get addicted to it too. But yeah, like it's on that stuff. I don't like it. I personally really don't like it. I think most of the, your main base of Magic the Gathering people, the people that will come back every time and buy these things set after set, don't really care for it either. In fact, there was a real big controversy when they announced with the Final Fantasy stuff, and I think there's one other, like they call it Universes Beyond, I believe, that stuff was actually going to be standard legal, which is their main moneymaker, their main format that they try to sell cards to. When they normally that stuff comes out and it's just, that's over here for people that are interested, so you can have fun with it in your casual game. But now it's actually like competitive play, and people were not happy about that. And I'm kind of with them. But at the same time, I'm going to buy the stupid Final Fantasy cards. So they got me there. I hate myself for it. But yeah.
As well you should.
I do. I do, Julian. Yeah. But yeah. Anyway, excellent. I have looked into the Baldur's Gate 3 thing. And it seems neat. Maybe I should look into it more, but I probably can't even buy that anymore for a decent price.
Well, last but not least, over on the Discord, we have this from Mike Fallick, who says, hey, at Julian Titus, comments and email section. I don't know why you felt the need to at me.
Why
you just
wouldn't
put
he?
it in the channel, and then we read it on the show.
Mike's a weird guy. What do you want from him?
Yes, he says, I am playing Avowed on hardest difficulty, obviously. Oh, I'm Mike Fallick, and I'm really good at video games. And I love it. I'm skim reading dialogue because it has the same quality of dialogue as Skyrim, which I qualify as the fine to shut up already range. It is, for me, the Skyrim killer, but I'll be skipping those segments of the State Select show until I'm done. Happy to come on and talk about it when I finish.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing I don't understand about one Mike Fallick.
Yeah.
Is for a guy who doesn't care about story in video games, he sure does care a lot about spoilers in video games.
Right? Kind of weird.
To like a really weird degree.
That's kind of a weird... Yeah. I didn't.
So
think
I'm
about
assuming,
that.
Mike, that if you're at this point in the show, that you did not hear us talk about Avowed at the beginning of the show, which didn't have any spoilers.
No.
It was just John talking about his thoughts on the game.
Yeah.
Which that's not a spoiler. That's just discussion.
I tried to be very aware of the spoilers. I had enough.
We're always very aware of spoilers. Like, even when it's unless I'm specifically saying I want to talk about this spoiler and I'm going to give you time to skip ahead to not hear about this spoiler, I can generally talk about a game without spoiling important shit. It's kind of a skill that I'm proud of.
Yeah. Yeah. I disagree with him as well, because I even in the 4 hours of Avowed I played, I can tell you that the writing's a lot better than Skyrim. Like, I love Skyrim, don't get me wrong. I don't know how long it's been since you played that shit, Mike. That the writing in that is like, it ain't much, man. Like, they're just like, I don't know, like, there's some line delivery alone. Just go fucking talk to Farengar in the first quest, and you'll just be like, oh wow, yeah, no, we've come a long way in voice acting, haven't we? Holy shit. But yeah, Skyrim cooler, sure.
Yeah.
Call me back. I listen.
It's funnier. It's a funnier game than Skyrim. Like, it's like you guys haven't. It's got the Outer Worlds. Like, Kai has asides all the time. Like, that's why he reminded me of the preacher from Outer Worlds, because you'll be having a conversation and Kai will be like, like he'll interject like some one-liner. And there were a couple moments that I had where I laughed out loud. Now, the writing is a little less, depending on what flavor high fantasy you want. It's not very highfalutin. It's kind of like modern in the way that characters talk to each other. But I think Mike may be going through, if I had to speculate a guess, the initial problems I had where it's like, oh, they're talking about stuff I don't know what they're talking about. So maybe he's like blazing through that. Versus like the actual writing's pretty good. I mean, you skip all you want, but the writing's pretty good.
At the same time, it's Mike Fallick and the man who has claimed on multiple occasions, story in video games doesn't matter. So, you know.
Yeah.
I don't forget these things.
Justin Ham will remember that.
God, the fucking rage the first time. I remember him being on Nerds Without Pants and me listening to that episode and just fucking fuming on the other hand. Oh, God. And then when he brought it up, I think the first time I was on with him, I was like, oh my God, this is going to be a whole thing. And we all wonder why I yell at Mike sometimes. This is why.
But you love him.
I love him to death. He's a great guy. but sometimes you're just like, what are you talking about?
Indeed. What did we talk about?
I don't know.
It was a lot. Go refer to the show notes, or just rewind the show and you can listen to it again. I don't know why you would do that immediately after listening to it, but you do you, boo. We're going to go ahead and start wrapping up. John Gholson, thank you very much for being on the show.
Thank you, John.
Thank you for having me on such short notice.
Oh, yeah. You're welcome back anytime.
Yeah, I've literally been wanting to have you on since episode 1. And you know, it just didn't work out last year. So try to get you on sooner rather than later.
Absolutely.
And I guess nothing to promote at this time.
No.
Nothing to promote at this time. It was
big things on the horizon.
Big things on the horizon. Yes, I have nothing at the moment. I feel like I'm forgetting something, but I really don't. There we go.
Yes.
Hey,
find John Gholson in our Discord.
I it's rare that I throw out my gamer tag, but I'm Mr. Gholson on both PSN and Xbox, which is MR and then my last name GHOLSON. So I'll throw out my gamer tag, and if anybody wants to add me, I'll, after this comes up, I'll just accept whatever strangers add me for that week.
There you go.
See what happens. Yeah. I rarely play any online games anyways, but it makes me feel like I have friends when I can look and see.
I know the
friends
feeling.
Online,
I know the feeling.
Friends online. That means I have them.
I know the feeling. Yeah.
Matt Jorgensen shared his PSN ID in the Discord today, and I was like, "Oh, so you're that guy?" Because I accepted just a request years ago, and I didn't. I was like, I don't know who this is, and I'll see them pop up, and I'm like, I don't know if you're a real person or not. That's a really weird name, and we don't really have a lot of games in common, so I don't know. But it's like, oh no, it's just Matt. It's like, okay,
sounds right.
Yeah. Justin, where can they find you, sir?
You can find me on twitch.tv/TyroneSwift, streaming probably Skyrim again, because why not? Man, streaming that game has been bad for me, because now I'm like, I gotta get it right and then stream it again, and that's what I work. It's bad. But then WWE is gonna come out, and then I gotta start doing that. Also YouTube at Tyrone Swift TV. You can watch all the old stuff where I edited all the penises out. It's fine. Don't worry about it. That was a fun incident.
You couldn't touch a man.
You couldn't touch a man after that. It was a whole thing. You were not allowed to touch men. I was like, oh, well, nope.
Yep. No touching men.
No touching men. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I got to figure out what's going on with that. I can't seem to fix that either. That's the whole thing.
You can find me on Blue Sky, Julian Titus. The show is still on Twitter at Stage Select Pod. Thanks as always to the wonderful Megan McDuffie for our theme song and interstitial tracks. Reminder that I was on the Soundtracker podcast. I will have the link to the episode or the Patreon in the show notes if you want to go check out the Patreon. Also, there's a recommendations tab on the Stage Select Patreon, and Soundtracker is there as well if you want an easy way to get to his page. We're gonna have, and also I'm gonna tell Eric to listen to this episode. He's been really busy, so he hasn't gotten to listen to a lot of our show, which
I don't blame
understandable.
him.
But I'm going to tell him to listen to this episode and then book John Gholson on Soundtracker, because that has to happen. I need to hear John and Eric talk about movies and music at the same time. I think that'll be a lot of fun. But that is going to do it for this edition of the Stage Select. I've been Julian Titus. He's been Justin Ham. Special thanks to John Gholson. We've been the Stage Select, signing off.
The Stage Select is copyrighted and owned by Space Monkey Mafia Productions, specializing in independent podcasting. Please consider sharing the show with your friends and support us by joining our Patreon or donating to our coffee. Thank you, and good night. Went in and putting this on, and what we're looking for is the testes. We're looking for the testes. Can you breathe in? Breathe in and cough for me. No, I'm pretty sure. Who's the doctor here? I'm the doctor here, right? You're not the doctor. I'm the doctor. Get the fuck out of my office right now. Go. All right. Trying to get to a place where it looks like I use these every single day. Mm-hmm. Right, so cough. Very good. Very good. Very good. I'm going to do it over here. Is that cold on your titties?
It is.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
My nipples are rock hard.
All right, well, you're right. Your nipples are too high. But yeah, I think it's going to be okay. I think you're going to be all right. You're going to live at least till the end of the day. Friend of the show, it's me, John Gholson. Sorry. That's for the Patreons.